Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Lord of Hell. Chapter 41. Gwen wanted to stay. No matter before or now, she was very interested in extraordinary events. She asked, Andrew, will it be dangerous to stay? Andrew smiled and said, Don't worry, it's not a big problem. After all, he's just a king of iron. The one in the comics is called Magneto, while the one in the movie world is just King of Iron. There is a huge difference in strength. When Psylocke heard this, he couldn't help but glance at Andrew. Young people today are too arrogant, right? Even Magneto dare not take them seriously. Are the ignorant fearless, or are they simply being kicked in the head by a donkey? Gwen naturally believed in Andrew, and she asked in surprise, King of Iron? Andrew said, I have watched Magneto's battle videos. He only knows how to control metal with magnetism. To be honest, I seriously doubt that his academic qualifications are forged. Psylocke was a little unhappy and said, Magneto can kill you 10,000 times just by moving his fingers. Andrew smiled and said nothing. Psylocke snorted and turned his attention back to the battlefield, where the two sides were confronting each other. Professor Charles said to Magneto, Eric, leave before things get too big. Now that I'm here, I won't leave. Magneto said coldly. Today, I not only want to take away the girl, but also let everyone know that we mutants are gods and do not need any salvation. There is only one thing we have to do, and that is to overthrow mankind and establish a country that belongs to us mutants. While Magneto was speaking, dozens of cars around him floated up at the same time, and everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Then, the cars fell to the ground with a bang, and a lot of glass shattered. This is Magneto showing the power of God. Professor Charles said, Eric, mutants are also humans. Magneto pointed at the people who had taken pictures before and asked loudly, Charles, tell me, when those people look at mutants, are they looking at the same kind of people, or are they looking at animals? Professor Charles sighed. At this time, Wolverine stepped forward and asked fiercely, Your target is not me, but the little naughty one. No one here knows you, but you are a good tool man. Magneto raised his hand, and the claw blade of Logan's right hand came out uncontrollably and lay across the little naughty neck. The little naughty was shocked and asked hurriedly, Logan, what are you doing? I'm being controlled. Logan struggled desperately, but he couldn't control his hands at all. His entire body was made of adamantium alloy, and he was completely defeated by Magneto. Eric, stop. Professor Charles controlled the big steel tooth to grab Magneto's neck. Magneto was already prepared. With a wave of his hand, the big steel tooth with iron chains on his body flew backwards. Then, Magneto snorted coldly, and the firearms in the hands of all the police, agents, and soldiers flew away from their hands at the same time, and turned towards them. There were screams around, and many police officers raised their hands to express surrender. Coulson cursed secretly, wishing he had brought a plastic gun with him. Thinking of something, Coulson glanced at Andrew's position and sighed when he saw him drinking coffee with a calm expression, knowing that he would not take action. Useless human weapons. Magneto smiled disdainfully, then he knocked on his helmet and said, Charles, you can't control me with this here. Seeing that Magneto had the situation under control, Toad strode towards the little naughty boy. Chin wanted to use telekinesis to stop Toad, but at this moment, a gunshot suddenly rang out. Chin hurriedly turned her head to look in the direction of the sound, and found a bullet hovering in front of a policeman's eyebrow. The policeman's face turned pale with fright. Professor Charles signaled Chin to stop and asked, Eric, what do you want the little naughty to do? Of course, to complete the great work of our mutants. Charles, let us leave, otherwise, these police officers, as well as the people around them, will die. As he spoke, Magneto controlled the gun and pointed it at the people next to him. Because Andrew was so close, a gun was pointed directly at his head. Professor Charles looked helpless. He was about to compromise. At this moment, Andrew said, Magneto, please move the gun away and apologize again. This matter will be over. Otherwise, Brother Wong will be very angry and the consequences will be very serious. Andrew didn't want to take action at first. Fighting mutants to death was none of his business, but as the devil of hell, he was pointed at a gun. If he didn't do something, how would he go out in the future? Andrew is not as thick-skinned as Mephisto. Andrew's words made Magneto couldn't help laughing. this is human beings, stupid and arrogant. Psylocke thought so too. Only Coulson was ecstatic. Originally, Magneto could easily take the little naughty boy away, but unfortunately, he died a big death. Then let's move around. Andrew stood up, and an umbrella appeared silently in his hand. Gwen complained. It appeared, Schrodinger's umbrella. Lower creatures. Magneto smiled disdainfully, controlled the gun and fired. Andrew sidestepped to avoid it. Then, he used his feet hard and appeared next to Magneto like a bolt of lightning, and hit his head hard with an umbrella. So fast. Magneto's eyes were slightly focused, but he was not afraid. He was doing two things. One magnetic force controlled the umbrella in Andrew's hand, and the other magnetic force controlled the cloak in front of him. This cloak is mixed with a special flexible alloy, and coupled with Magneto's magnetic force, even a rocket launcher can't be fired. What shocked Magneto was that he couldn't control the metal in the umbrella. Then, the umbrella hit the cloak hard, and the cloak quickly dented and hit Magneto's helmet. Magneto flew out and rolled on the ground. Before Magneto could recover, Andrew appeared next to him as if teleporting. Umbrellas fell like raindrops, and the sound of banging blows was endless. Andrew snorted. God, are you worthy? Magneto was so angry that he wanted to fight back, but the opponent's attack speed was too fast. He couldn't gather the strength at all, so he could only be beaten passively. Fortunately, the opponent was not very powerful and he was not seriously injured. Everyone around was stunned. That was Magneto, the most wanted criminal in the United States, and now he was beaten by a young man as his grandson. The scene was as cruel as it could be, shocking. A 70-year-old man was beaten by an umbrella youth in public, and the people around not only did not stop him, but also cheered loudly. Is this a loss of morality or a distortion of human nature? Eric. Professor Charles was a little afraid to look at it. Naughty Little Naughty and Wolverine cheered loudly in their hearts. Magneto, you old guy, is also here today. The little naughty boy looked at Andrew with bright eyes. He was so handsome as Bruce Lee. Psylocke's mouth can be opened wide enough to fit an egg in. Who is that kid? He's so strong. Gwen said proudly. My boyfriend never lies. It's just Magneto. My boyfriend is a kung fu master. It's easy to beat him. Kung fu master. Lingdi looked suspicious. She had never seen a kung fu master before. How could he be so strong? At this time, the toad reacted and hurriedly shot its tongue at Andrew. Andrew felt disgusted and retreated to avoid it. Big Steel roared and rushed towards Andrew with a bang, but Professor Charles felt sorry for his gay friend, and quietly let Big Steel go. Andrew knocked the big steel tooth to the ground with an umbrella, and Magneto took the opportunity to control himself to slide far away. Then, he roared, and all the cars around him flew up and crashed down on Andrew one after another. Andrew dodged the cars as if he were strolling. The cars crashed to the ground one after another, countless parts flying around, and there were screams of surprise all around. Magneto, who was going crazy, was about to continue attacking. At this moment, a red figure wearing a suit and a tail appeared next to him and disappeared with him. Immediately afterwards, this red figure appeared behind Toad and Dogania, leading the two of them into red gas and disappearing. Red Devil. In other words, the people in the Hellfire Club are still alive. Andrew's eyes flickered and he did not pursue. In fact, he had no intention of killing Magneto, otherwise Magneto would have been killed by him before. Villains are precious resources and cannot be killed casually. If they are killed, who will bring fear and despair to the people of New York? Andrew shook his head and pressed the button on the watch. All the electronic devices around him were formatted. This was the hacker watch developed by Howard. Coulson, I'll leave it to you to handle the rest. Andrew confessed to Coulson and left here with excited Gwen. Coulson responded subconsciously and then realized, I am not your subordinate. Coulson shook his head helplessly and began to deal with the aftermath. He first sent agents to appease the people, then walked to Professor Charles and said, Professor, I think we need to cooperate now. Magneto obviously wants to cause big things. Professor Charles asked curiously, who was that person just now? Is he from S.H.I.E.L.D.? No, we can't afford to hire him. He's just passing by. Coulson smiled bitterly. At this time, Professor Charles said, oh, so he is the Fire Angel. No wonder he is so powerful. The smile on Coulson's face froze. No wonder Nick Fury never went to see Professor Charles. It was too painful to talk to the mind reader. In fact, Professor Charles did not read Coulson's mind. He just received some consciousness that Coulson emitted due to his emotional fluctuations. This was his instinct and could not be stopped. I'll keep it a secret, Professor Charles said. Chin will discuss the cooperation with you. After saying that, Professor Charles controlled the wheelchair to go to Wolverine and Little Naughty. Professor Charles said, Little Naughty, I respect your choice, but I hope you can think about it carefully. Your abilities are gifts given to you by God. Quote, I don't want such a gift. The little naughty girl smiled bitterly. She thought about it and decided to go back to the Mutant Academy with the professor first. She was a little scared by what happened just now. An hour after the little naughty boy and the professor left, the mutants who stayed in Times Square suddenly appeared in offices one after another. Then, the Hell Messenger, who was as beautiful as a supermodel, asked with a smile on his face, do you want to change back? Ordinary people. The Brotherhood of Mutants base in New York is located on a small island. After being rescued, Magneto, who was bruised and swollen, and extremely embarrassed, roared, why did you bring me back? I want to kill that kid. Magneto didn't think he could beat Andrew. He was just careless and didn't dodge before. Ruiwin asked me to bring you back. She feels that if the trouble continues, you won't get anything good. The Red Devil shrugged. He and Magneto only had a cooperative relationship and his words were not polite at all. In addition, the Red Devil once tricked Mystique Raven into giving birth to a child for him, the Blue Devil. The relationship between the two was extremely bad. If it weren't for Magneto, Raven would never have called the Red Devil hateful. Magneto cursed bitterly. How many years has it been since he was so embarrassed? Still being pushed to the ground and beaten by a young boy. Toad said, Eric, calm down. We will discuss the matter of revenge in the long run. We can't think about it in the long term. What happened today will make those people lose their respect for mutants. More importantly, there must be a huge conspiracy in transforming mutants back into ordinary people. We must take action as soon as possible. Magneto took a deep breath and said coldly, prepare the instruments. In 7 days, we will attack Times Square in New York and turn everyone in Manhattan into mutants. Red Devil, you will come with us then. The Red Devil shrugged. I don't care. Toad was stunned and said hurriedly, Eric, without that girl, you will die if you start the instrument. Magneto has developed a radiation instrument that transforms ordinary people into mutants. He needs to activate it himself. This instrument consumes a lot of money. If he wants the radiation wave to cover the entire Manhattan, Magneto will probably lose his life. This is why Magneto wants to capture Naughty. Naughty can absorb the abilities of others, and Magneto wants Naughty to start the instrument on his behalf. It is worth mentioning that Magneto's instrument is actually a failure. It can transform mutants, but after the transformation is completed, the mutants will die due to genetic collapse in a short period of time. What? Why doesn't Magneto know? Because he has never done experiments at all. This is what this world-breaking person is like. Lizardmen, future mutant antidotes, and transformation equipment are all applied immediately after research, without any scientific spirit. Magneto said coldly, it's okay. Raven has found a mutant who can connect with life. When the time comes, we will use the lives of those traitors in Times Square to complete our great cause as mutants. That's no problem, Eric, let's get ready. This time, we must make it look good to humans. Toad nodded and left excitedly with the others. Magneto felt the pain in his body and was furious. He must make that kid pay the price. Although the Magneto attack occurred in Times Square, because mutants turned into ordinary people one after another, Times Square not only did not become deserted, but became more and more lively. In the Rebirth building near Times Square, Andrew felt very satisfied with the soul contracts he kept signing. What made him even more happy was that according to the investigation, mutants from other places were gathering in New York. In other words, for the next period of time, Andrew will continue to curse until his hand cramps. Technology is indeed the primary productive force. By the way, I want to develop a secret recipe for eternal youth. Will those women sell their souls to me for this? Andrew touched his chin. This seemed to be very interesting. Just look at the cosmetics market to see what price a woman can pay for youth. Not only youth, but also hair loss problems, kidney deficiency problems, weight loss problems, disability problems, these can all be taken into consideration. Andrew's mind suddenly opened up. It had been too narrow before. There were many ways to get souls, and there was no need to just focus on disasters. Of course, the premise is that Andrew develops corresponding technical products, just like the leech factor. After all, this is a big business, not a small business of a few people, and requires technological assistance. For a few people alone, not to mention kidney deficiency problems, regeneration of amputated limbs, increasing lifespan, curing cancer. Andrew can do all of these, but it consumes a lot of money and is not suitable for large-scale use. At this time, should I shout that my path has been fulfilled? Andrew couldn't help laughing. At this time, Susan opened the door and came in. She asked curiously, "Andrew, what are you laughing at?" Andrew said, "I felt you were coming, so I smiled happily." "You can say good things." Susan snorted, but with a smile on her face. She then walked up to Andrew and asked hesitantly, "Andrew, have you heard of Dr. Reed's name?" Andrew's eyes flashed and he asked, "Dr. Reed, who is known as the smartest person on earth. Not only have I heard of his name, but I have also seen him at a cocktail party." "Yes, he went bankrupt some time ago and has made a comeback recently. He wants us to invest in a new project for him." Susan nodded and said, "The Cosmic Storm Project. According to him, in a few months, a cosmic storm will pass by the Earth. Cosmic storms are related to the origin of human beings. By studying them, we may be able to find a cure for all human diseases." Quote, "Is it the plot of the Fantastic Four? We need to find a way to get Susan to go to the space station. It would be more interesting for her to become the Invisible Woman. However, we cannot let her and Dr. Reed rekindle their old relationship." Andrew understood, and he said, "If you reject him, the Rebirth Group will not have any cooperation with Dr. Reed. In addition, warn him not to invest in the Rebirth Group, otherwise I will kill him." Quote. Susan looked confused. She could understand why he didn't invest in Dr. Reed. After all, Dr. Reed's project was risky. What the hell was Dr. Reed not allowed to invest in Rebirth Group? Andrew asked Susan, "Do you believe in fate?" "I didn't believe it before, but after meeting you, I started to believe it a little bit." Susan said, "Even an angel can be my boyfriend. It is normal to have a destiny. I have seen Dr. Reed, and he has very bad career luck. To put it simply, whoever he invests in is unlucky, and whoever invests in him goes bankrupt," Andrew said. "How can this be?" Susan was about to deny it when she suddenly thought of something and looked strange. Dr. Reed had gone bankrupt more than 10 times since graduation because the number of investors he jumped from was at least double digits. "No wonder I was so poor when I was with him." Susan secretly rejoiced. "Fortunately, I have broken up with him. Otherwise, wouldn't I even have food to eat? Take my message to Dr. Reed." Andrew said, "Also, if he really wants to invest, he can go to Tony Stark. I can sell the small space station to the Stark Group. That thing is useless anyway." Susan complained, "Do you have a grudge against Iron Man to harm him like this?" "No grudge, but I am happy to see him unlucky. Besides, this is a business. Because of Iron Man, the share price of Stark Group is a bit inflated." Andrew said, "When the time comes, I will short the Stark Group in advance and make another profit. This is called a win-win situation." "Is this also called a win-win? Aren't you the only one who wins?" Susan complained again. "Andrew, are you really an angel and not a demon from hell?" Andrew's face darkened, and he said coldly, "Susan, you know too much. Come here, I will punish you. It's work time now." Susan rolled her eyes at Andrew, twisted her waist and went out to answer Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed was a little disappointed when he heard Andrew Wang's rejection. He said, "Susan, if the research on this project is successful, it can benefit many people." Susan said, "Andrew said that you can go to Tony Stark to invest. He is willing to sell the space station to Tony." Tony Stark. No scientist wants to see Dr. Reed's reluctant face and Tony Stark's arrogant face. Susan glanced at Dr. Reed with pity and said, "In short, Andrew will not cooperate with you. Dr. Reed, if nothing happens, you can leave." "I see." Dr. Reed hesitated for a moment and said, Susan, the reason why I came to Rebirth Group is not only because of the Cosmic Storm project, but also because of a dream I had. What does your dream have to do with me? Reed, we have broken up. Susan snorted coldly. It could be heard from her tone that she had great resentment towards Reed. Dr. Reed said, it has something to do with it. I dreamed about our future son. He asked me to get you back as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will be completely snatched away by Andrew Wong soon. Susan said dissatisfiedly. Reed, even if you want to chase me again, you don't have to make such an outrageous excuse, right? I have no intention of pursuing you again. I have just made a comeback. I am very busy and have no time to fall in love. What I said is true. Dr. Reed said. Susan almost died of anger, and Andrew couldn't help laughing in the next office. Dr. Reed's emotional intelligence is as low as his IQ. I really didn't lie to you. Dr. Reed hurriedly explained. Our future son also told me that he actually doesn't care who his father is, anyway, it will definitely be him and his sister. But that fool Andrew Wong is not only carefree, he also only cares about himself and has no intention of having children. If you were really with Andrew Wong, he might be born thousands of years later. Quote. Reed, I really misjudged you. Not only did you make up a funny lie, but you also slandered Andrew. Andrew is 10,000 times better than you. He can satisfy me in every aspect. I'm with him, I don't know. How happy. Susan pointed at the door and said coldly, leave. Seeing that Susan was angry, Dr. Reed had no choice but to leave. When he got to the door, he wanted to say something. Susan slammed the door and Dr. Reed covered his nose and screamed. With Dr. Reed's emotional intelligence, he is not worthy of being my love rival. Andrew touched his chin and thought to himself, the question is what he said true? Hey, wait, the little boy I dreamed about, could it be the son of Dr. Reed and Susan? Interesting, let's see how it develops in the future. Andrew smiled and pulled the mutants in Times Square into the illusion. Professor Charles had been staying in Times Square these past few days. He noticed the fluctuations in his mind and immediately used his abilities to follow in. Andrew could stop Professor Charles, but he did not do so. He used flames to cover his true face and met the other person in person. Professor Charles, are you looking for me? Excuse me, were you the one who turned those mutants back into ordinary people? Professor Charles asked while carefully peeking into Andrew's mind, but he sensed nothing. Don't spy on me, otherwise you will die. In fact, if I hadn't suppressed the instinct to fight back, you would be in a vegetative state now. Andrew said, I can tell you the truth, and I can also let you keep this memory, but you have to sign a contract with me and never leak this matter, otherwise, your soul will be taken away by me. While Andrew was speaking, a contract appeared in front of Professor Charles. After reading it, he hesitated and chose to sign the contract. Professor Charles must find out this matter, and the contract is not strict. After Professor Charles finished signing the contract, Andrew said, I am the Demon King of Hell. I made a deal with those mutants. They gave me their souls after death, and I helped them transform back into ordinary people. Demon King, soul trade. Professor Charles was stunned. He had guessed many truths, but he never thought that the truth would be so unscientific and outrageous. If you are not a demon king, how can you turn so many mutants back into ordinary people? Andrew said, Professor, this is a fair transaction between you and me. There is no conspiracy. Professor Charles said, the human soul should belong to God. No, most people's souls will only go to hell. In fact, going to my hell is far happier than going to other hells. My hell is the best hell certified by Kamatage. Andrew said, Professor Charles, do you want to book a house in my hell? The price may increase in the future. I've never been good at investing. I lose as much as I invest. Fortunately, I inherited a relatively large inheritance. Professor Charles, the second-generation prodigal rich man, smiled mockingly, and then asked, Mr. Demon King, there is no human involvement in this matter, and there is no conspiracy, right? Andrew said, there is definitely no conspiracy, but there are humans involved in this matter. Professor Charles was puzzled. What do you mean? Andrew said with a smile on his face, the following is paid content. If you want to listen, please top up first. Professor Charles was dumbfounded. He was about to say something when Andrew waved him away from the illusion, Sorry, the recharge system is not open yet. Professor, remember this symbol. One day, if you want to sell your soul, please call me as soon as possible. As Andrew spoke, the flames on his body turned into a blazing phoenix, which was a symbol of rebirth in hell. Professor Charles subconsciously remembered it. A soul with the potential of the Holy Spirit. A flash of greed flashed in Andrew's eyes. The professor's soul was very pure and of immeasurable value. If he went to heaven, even the archangel would personally come out to greet him. While chatting with Professor Charles, another consciousness of Andrew was receiving the Phoenix girl. It is worth mentioning that the little naughty girl did not come over. He must have been persuaded by the professor and others. Andrew looked at the perverse and violent Dark Phoenix in front of him, and said with a smile, "Phoenix girl, or Dark Phoenix, I have wanted to see you for a long time." Phoenix girl Chin Gray has two personalities, one is a well-informed and courteous personality, and the other is a violent inner personality with the power of the Phoenix. This inner personality was sealed by the professor with the power of the mind. Has never seen the light of day. The person who was pulled into the illusion by Andrew was not his outer personality, but his inner personality, Dark Phoenix. Can you break through that old man's blockade? Dark Phoenix said excitedly. Let me out quickly, I will destroy this world. Andrew asked. This world is so beautiful, why do you want to destroy it? Because I hate this world and I want to destroy everything. Dark Phoenix roared ferociously. She had been imprisoned for too many years, and coupled with the influence of the Phoenix power, she had already lost her mind and was like a madman. Andrew shook his head. That's not okay. I haven't finished enjoying this world yet, so I can't let you destroy it. Besides, you can't represent Jean Grey, and the contract you signed is invalid. If you don't let me go, I'll kill you. Black Phoenix was furious when he heard this, and condensed a jet of black flames to hit Andrew fiercely. Andrew flew backwards, and the flames hit a stone sculpture, and the stone sculpture was instantly decomposed and disappeared. This is the power of the Phoenix, which can break down everything. However, the Black Phoenix has not yet taken over Chin's body, so its strength is relatively not too strong. Her strength in the illusion is equivalent to her strength in reality. You alone can't kill me. Andrew smiled and said that Dark Phoenix became more and more angry and chased Andrew to attack. Andrew was not polite and fought with her in the illusion. However, he did not use all his strength and deliberately stayed at the same level as Black Phoenix. What is Andrew going to do? It's very simple. Fight, play, and chat with Dark Phoenix to let her release the anger she has accumulated for decades. In this way, she will slowly change and won't think about destroying the world all day long. Of course, in addition to saving the Earth, Andrew also has another purpose, and that is, to pick up girls. For a person who has been alone for decades, suddenly someone comes to fight with you, play with you, and chat with you. It is difficult not to fall in love with him or her. After meeting Dark Phoenix, Andrew will find a way to merge Dark Phoenix and Phoenix Girl. By then, Jean Grey will completely belong to him. This is called overtaking in a corner. 6 hours after the illusion, Dark Phoenix sat on the ground tiredly and said bitterly to Andrew, I will definitely kill you. Sorry, I don't like being killed. I just like killing others. Andrew smiled and said, okay, that's it for today. See you next time. After speaking, Andrew waved his hand to drive Dark Phoenix away from the illusion. At this time, just 6 seconds had passed in real time, and a group of mutants who had turned back into ordinary people were crying with joy. At the same time, a group of Kuaisho video owners were shooting videos frantically, adding miracles and other modifications. Seeing that the mutants had turned back into ordinary people, Storm couldn't help but ask, Professor, have you discovered anything? Professor Charles sighed. I was about to discover the truth, but because I had no money to top up, I was kicked offline. Storm looked confused. What does this mean? Also, aren't you the most powerful second-generation rich man? Why do you have no money? Did you finally lose all your family property? Professor Charles didn't explain much. At this time, he noticed that Chin was in a trance and asked with concern, Chin, what's wrong? Chin said, I don't know why, but I feel a lot more relaxed and a little happy. Storm said, maybe it's because Logan isn't here. That guy knows you have a boyfriend and still pesters you every day. He's just more casual and has no malicious intent. Chin said that in fact, she did not reject Wolverine that much. If not, Wolverine would not pester her for nothing. Of course, Jean had no intention of cheating. In the words of the movie, girls like to play with dangerous guys but would not take him home. Professor Charles thought for a while and said, Eric may have caused trouble recently. Chin, let Scott be stationed here. As for the mutants turning back into ordinary people, there is no need to investigate any more. Although Chin was puzzled, she still nodded. At this time, an idea came to her mind and she said, I'll come over too. Professor Charles thought that Chin just wanted to avoid Wolverine and did not refuse. Now he just hoped that Magneto would not cause any big trouble. Mutants cannot withstand any storms. A few days later, in Times Square at night, Cyclops Scott, wearing sunglasses, glared at Wolverine Logan with an unhappy look on his face. It was clear that this guy had nothing to do with him, but this guy took the initiative to come over. Everyone could see that. What is he planning? Logan smiled heartily and said, Scott, I was worried that you would be lonely, so I came here to accompany you. You don't need to thank me. By the way, your motorcycle is good, and I enjoyed riding it very much, so I won't return it yet. Seduce my woman and ride my motorcycle. Scott was so angry that he almost killed Logan with his laser eyes. He snorted, if you stay away from me, I will really thank you. Logan pretended not to hear, and asked Chin, I have been dreaming about a dam every night recently. It should be my original memory. Can you help me with the power of your mind? Chin is proficient in telekinesis and psychic power, and is considered Professor Charles's apprentice. Chin said, your memory is too vague, not even the professor can do anything about it, let alone me. Logan refused to give up and kept asking Jean to help him. Scott became more and more unhappy, but in order to maintain his grace, he did not do anything to Wolverine. While Scott and Logan were jealous, Coulson led a group of agents to guard another part of Times Square. With Magneto's character, he will definitely cause trouble. Don't be careless. In addition, throw away all the metal objects on your body, leaving no one behind. Coulson said, the Ministry of Science and Technology has developed a cryogun with no metal on it, which is most suitable for dealing with Magneto. The cryogun doesn't really freeze people. It's filled with cobra venom, and one shot can make people fall to the ground and lose consciousness. Yes, everyone nodded. Coulson looked out the window and frowned slightly. If Magneto really came to cause trouble, S.H.I.E.L.D. would not be strong enough. Coulson secretly sighed. It would be great if Mr. Wong would join S.H.I.E.L.D. Unfortunately, he has a huge prejudice against S.H.I.E.L.D. Our S.H.I.E.L.D. is indeed guilty, but we have been protecting the world. The world-famous Statue of Liberty is located on Alice Island off the coast of Manhattan. That night, the mutants from the Brotherhood knocked out the guards on duty and gathered under the Statue of Liberty. Their eyes were full of excitement and anticipation. In the position of the torch of the statue of Goddess, Magneto and Mystique stood side by side, looking at the brightly lit Manhattan opposite. Tonight, Manhattan will be reborn. Magneto smiled slightly, turned to Mystique and asked, is Tony Stark here? Coming soon. Mystique said. I called him pretending to be Pepper and told him to wait for him at the Statue of Liberty. With his relationship with Pepper, he would definitely come. In addition, the real Pepper was in the car, and I had someone do something to prevent Iron Man from contacting her. Quote. Before Mystique finished speaking, a burst of wild music came from the distance, and then, a steel figure sprayed flames and flew at high speed from a distance. Why did Pepper invite me here? Tony was a little confused. At this time, Jarvis suddenly reminded, enemy number 2 has been scanned on the Statue of Liberty. Please retreat immediately. The number 2 enemy is Magneto. Tony is just arrogant, not stupid. He knows exactly what will happen if he encounters Magneto. As for the number 1 enemy, he is naturally the Ghost Rider who is powerful and can steal the limelight. Tony's expression changed and he was about to stop immediately. At this moment, Magneto raised his hand and the steel suit flew uncontrollably towards the Statue of Liberty. Tony wanted to control the suit to launch missiles, but he couldn't open the launch port at all. The entire suit was enveloped by Magneto's magnetism. In fact, let alone launching missiles, Tony couldn't even call for help. Immediately afterwards, Magneto's right hand shook slightly, and the screws on the suit quickly rotated. After a while, the entire suit disintegrated and floated neatly in the air. Tony fell to the platform with a bang. Magneto said with a look of disdain, "This is the god they worship. Without the suit, he is nothing. As the saying goes, if you lose, you don't lose." Tony sneered. "At least, I won't be beaten up in the street like someone else." Magneto's face was a little dark. He waved his hand and Tony hit the wall with a bang, letting out a scream. Tony gritted his teeth and swore that he would research an anti-Magneto suit. When the time comes, he would imitate that kid and beat up Magneto on the street, as cruel as he could. Tony thought of something and asked hurriedly, "Where's Pepper? What did you do to Pepper?" "Don't worry, she's not here." Magneto said, "Do you know why I invited you here?" Tony breathed a sigh of relief, and then snorted coldly, "So this is called an invitation. I really learned it. Next time, I will also invite you to my place as a guest. I invite you here for two purposes. One is for the steel suit, and the other is to hang you on the Statue of Liberty for exhibition." Magneto said, "I want the whole world to know that mortals cannot defeat gods. You are an outstanding person among mortals, and you are the perfect candidate for this. Hang me on the Statue of Liberty." Tony was dumbfounded and said hurriedly, "Magneto, if you have something to say, this is definitely not possible." Tony was not afraid of anything, but he was afraid of being embarrassed. If he was really hung up on the Statue of Liberty for display, he would not have to go out in the future. "What qualifications do you have to discuss with me?" Magneto smiled contemptuously, grabbed his hand from the air, and the arc reactor on Tony's chest flew out and fell into his hand. Tony fell to the ground in pain. There were shrapnel in his blood. Without the arc reactor, the shrapnel would soon enter his heart and kill him. While Magneto reorganized the suit, he said to Tony, "Tony Stark, hand over control of the suit and I will spare your life." Tony didn't want to die, so he chose to compromise and unlock the Mark suit so that everyone could use it. Naturally, Magneto and Mystique would not believe Tony 100%. Mystique took a laptop and connected it to Mark's suit, and used the software inside to quickly modify the program. The software was designed by other hackers, and there were many in the Brotherhood. Talent. Done. After a moment, Mystique nodded to Magneto, who raised his finger, and the shrapnel in Tony's blood flew away from his body with a puff of blood. Magneto said, "What you humans are completely incapable of doing, to me, is just a matter of moving my fingers." Tony lay on the ground, gasping for air, and said, "Thank you for curing me. By the way, what is the account number? I will give you money." Magneto snorted coldly, and the wire on the ground flew up to tie Tony up. Then, the wire flew Tony to the top of the Statue of Liberty and hung him on the edge of the crown. Tony was filled with shame and anger, and shouted in the cold wind, "Magneto, I will never let you go. I will let you go, for you will soon become one of my compatriots." Faced with Tony's provocation, Magneto smiled slightly, then turned to Mystique and said, "Riven." Mystique opened her hands, and the suit was quickly equipped on her body under the control of Magneto. Tony looked sad. Why did he feel like he was being attacked by a minotaur? After a while, Mark's suit was completed, and Mystique was a little excited and quickly became familiar with the functions of the suit. Mark's suit has an intelligent system, and it is not difficult to get started. The first step is completed. Now, start the second step. What's Magneto's second step? It was to control the Statue of Liberty. He raised his hands upwards, and the base of the Statue of Liberty made a breaking sound. Then, the Statue of Liberty slowly flew into the sky. Yes, the Statue of Liberty flew up, and Tony was stunned. Although he was well informed, he never thought that one day the Statue of Liberty would be truly free. The Statue of Liberty weighs 225 tons. To Magneto, this weight is really nothing. In the movie, he has controlled yachts, football fields, nuclear submarines, and steel bridges. The mutants under the Statue of Liberty looked at Magneto in admiration. He was really a godlike power. Tony couldn't help but ask, "Magneto, what do you want to do?" "I want to turn you into us." Magneto's right hand shook slightly, and a large number of rivets spun away from the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty disintegrated, but under the influence of magnetism, it did not fall down. Then, Magneto transformed the statue of the goddess into a small steel fortress. In the center of the fortress was a metal round tower hundreds of meters high. Above the round tower stood a torch, and inside the torch was the mutant transformation instrument. The mutant transformation instrument is round in appearance and consists of a core controller, a silver bracket and a rotating metal circle. Tony, who was hung in the middle of the round tower, looked at this miracle, and couldn't help but swallowed his saliva. He said, "The Statue of Liberty turned into the shape of Magneto." "I like your optimism." Magneto glanced at Tony and shouted downwards, "Enter the fortress and set up defenses. After tonight, this world will belong to us mutants. Long live Magneto." The Brotherhood members cheered and entered the simple fortress with weapons that had been prepared. Magneto wasted no time and controlled the small fortress to fly into the sky, across the sea towards Manhattan, and mutants came to dominate the world tonight. "It looks like something big is going to happen tonight," Tony murmured to himself. He couldn't help but smile bitterly when he thought of his situation. No matter whether something big happened tonight or not, he was destined to be ruined. Such a large steel fortress couldn't hide anything from anyone. S.H.I.E.L.D. quickly received the news. Coulson looked at the flying objects on the screen and immediately notified other agents and the X-Men to come to Manhattan. Then, Coulson called the Air Force. "Don't send planes over. Any plane is a toy in front of Magneto. Send troops into Manhattan." After getting a positive reply from the Army, Coulson called Director George, "Evacuate the citizens of Manhattan as quickly as possible. Magneto is definitely going to do something big this time." "Good." Director George nodded, his face looking very ugly. What happened to New York this year? Why are disasters happening one after another? Although Director George immediately arranged for the police to evacuate the people, it was of little use. On the one hand, the citizens did not cooperate. On the other hand, the Brotherhood was well prepared. They detonated cars and shops one after another, causing traffic chaos. This time, Magneto came prepared. Professor Charles led the X-Men to Manhattan in a jet fighter. He frowned. Although he didn't know what Magneto wanted to do, the situation of mutants will definitely get worse after this time. Professor Charles, who has dedicated his life to mutants, is deeply tired. After so many years of hard work, the future of mutants has not only not improved, but has become worse and worse. Near Times Square, the broad-minded female reporter of the Daily Bugle, Luo Shan, was live broadcasting. She signaled the cameraman Peter Parker to focus the camera on the police who were directing traffic, and said at the same time, the police suddenly started to evacuate the crowd. "I don't know if it was because of the police. It's related to Magneto. Roxanne is the ex-girlfriend of Ghost Rider Johnny. After Andrew acquired the Daily Bugle, he hired her from Texas to New York with a high salary. To be honest, Roxanne is very satisfied with this job. On the one hand, the salary is high, and on the other hand, New York has no shortage of big news. As for why Peter is working as a cameraman here, of course it's because we are poor. If not, who works overtime?" Roxanne was about to interview the police. At this moment, Peter sensed something, raised his head suddenly, and then exclaimed. Luo Shan subconsciously looked towards the sky, her mouth suddenly opened and unable to close. In the sky, a huge and ferocious steel fortress was flying towards this direction at a fast speed. Even the moonlight was blocked wherever it passed. The citizens who had been pointing fingers at the police before now wished their parents had extra legs and fled outside like crazy. Roxanne shouted, "God, Peter, quickly turn the camera to the sky, it must be Magneto here." Peter blinked and asked, "Hey, Roxanne, shouldn't we run away at this time?" Roxanne shouted, "Run away? Are you kidding me? This is big news. My legs are lame and I can't run. Whether I can gain a foothold in New York depends on this. Is this a professional journalist?" Peter was stunned. He hesitated and decided to wait and see. Soon, the steel fortress came to Times Square. Magneto didn't say anything nonsense and controlled the steel fortress to fall. The people hiding in the store were so scared that they ran outside. With a bang, the steel fortress fell heavily on Times Square, and the entire earth shook violently like an earth dragon turning over. Immediately afterwards, a large number of glass and screens shattered, and some buildings with poor quality even collapsed. The prosperous Times Square turned into a hell in an instant, with countless people screaming and wailing. "Bring in those traitors," Magneto ordered in a cold voice, and Toad and Dogenya immediately led a group of mutants and rushed toward the Epsilon-level mutants hiding aside. Wolverine, Chin, and Cyclops saw this and hurried over to stop them, and the two sides fought. The three Wolverines are very powerful, but their numbers are too small to stop the Brotherhood. A large number of failed mutants are captured into the fortress, and they will become Magneto's battery. Magneto rarely harms mutants, but those traitors are not considered mutants. Due to the shock, Roxanne almost fell down, but luckily Peter helped her. She nodded to Peter and immediately started reporting, while Peter held up the camera to film. At this time, Peter, who had great eyesight, noticed that there seemed to be someone hanging on the round tower, and hurriedly zoomed in on the person with the camera. After a moment, he shouted in shock, "Mr. Stark. Tony Stark." Roxanne's eyes lit up and she immediately came over to look at the camera and found that Tony Stark was really hanging on it. Big news. Roshan immediately began to report. As you can see, Iron Man was captured by Magneto. Magneto seemed not to kill him, but just hung him on the round tower for display. Tony, who has been in countless news, immediately noticed that there was a camera pointed at him, and immediately shouted in the direction of the camera, "Don't film, otherwise I will buy the TV station in the future and fire you." Unfortunately, because the surroundings were too noisy, no one could hear what Tony was shouting. The audience in front of the screen only saw Tony shouting, seemingly asking for help. The citizens were heartbroken. Even Iron Man was captured. What should they do? That's Iron Man. Haha, this kid also deserves what he has today. The person who said this was none other than Tony's father, Howard. Seeing Tony's embarrassment, he couldn't help laughing. "You are definitely Iron Man's biological father," Andrew complained, and he asked, "Aren't you afraid that Magneto will kill your son? By the way, Tony is so unlucky, could it be because of Dr. Reed?" Howard said, "Don't be afraid. If Magneto really wanted to kill Tony, he would have killed him long ago. Magneto is a mutant supremacist. He probably wants to humiliate Tony and demean ordinary people." Andrew stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the tall metal round tower, and said, "Magneto will not kill Iron Man, but he will kill Iron Man." Howard was stunned and asked hurriedly, "What do you mean?" "Magneto's instrument can transform ordinary people into mutants. The problem is that the instrument is not perfect, and the transformer will die due to genetic collapse in a short period of time." Andrew said, "He hung Iron Man there, on the one hand, to humiliate ordinary people, and on the other hand, he wanted to turn Iron Man into a mutant." Howard couldn't help but cursed when he heard this. Does he have any scientific knowledge, but he doesn't even do the most basic experiments? Which university issued him a diploma? Is this what you care about? Andrew complained, and Howard was really a little anxious at this time. He said, "Boss, I'm going to save Tony. In front of Magneto, your suit is no different than a toy." Andrew said, "Don't worry, Tony won't die. If he really dies." Howard's eyes lit up and he asked, "Will you resurrect him?" Andrew said, "No, I will take him into the rebirth hell as soon as possible and reunite you father and son. You don't need to thank me. This is the reward you deserve." Howard's face was a little dark. "Thank you for your family." He said, "Boss, the Stark family has no successor. That kid can't die just yet." Andrew said, "I said, don't worry." Howard finally understood, and he said excitedly, "That's good, boss, I'll make preparations. The Sky Fortress has been modified." Andrew waved his hand and sent Howard back to hell. Then he took out his mobile phone and sent an anonymous voice message to Roxanne. While Luo Shan was reporting, a voice message suddenly played on the Bluetooth headset in her ear. After listening to it, she was overjoyed and turned around and shouted, "Peter, point the camera at me." Roxanne's words stopped suddenly. The reason was simple. Peter Parker slipped away at some point, leaving only the camera alone on the roof of the car. The boy actually ran away. The handsome guy is indeed unreliable. Forget it, I will do it myself. Luo Shan gritted her teeth, walked over, positioned the camera, and started reporting. Peter ran away. Of course not, he just turned into Spider-Man and joined the battle. He kicked a petrified skin mutant away and shouted, "Hey, kidnapping is a felony. Bugs, get out." The petrified mutant roared angrily and started fighting with Spider-Man. At this time, Coulson arrived with the agents. Without any nonsense, they immediately raised their cryo guns and shot at the mutants. Several mutants fell on the spot. Back off. Seeing this, Toad retreated with the mutants. Wolverine killed Red Eyes and immediately chased after him. With a powerful swing of his claw blade, a mutant was broken into 4 pieces. Upon seeing this, Magneto on the round tower raised his hand, and Wolverine flew up to the tower uncontrollably, and was tightly entangled in the iron bars and hung on it. Tony greeted Wolverine. "You're here too, the scenery here is nice." Wolverine ignored Tony and struggled hard, but unfortunately, because his arms were tied, he couldn't break free from the iron bars. Without Wolverine's interruption, the mutants successfully retreated into the fortress. Then, relying on the fortress, they used superpowers and firearms to attack the X-Men and agents outside. Everyone hurriedly found obstacles to avoid. Trouble. Coulson secretly cursed that the firepower they brought was a cryogun, which was not as powerful as the other party. Of course, even if they had heavy weapons, they would not dare to use them. After all, Magneto was in the round tower. In front of Magneto, modern weapons are a joke. Magneto was not in a hurry to start the instrument. He was waiting for the enemy to appear. At this moment, Mystique, who was wearing a steel suit, suddenly pointed her hand at Magneto. Immediately afterwards, a voice came from Mystique's mouth. "Eric, don't make the same mistake again and again." Magneto used magnetism to control the steel suit and said at the same time, "Charles, I had expected you to come. You might as well search Raven's memories of the past few days." Professor Charles was stunned and hurriedly checked Mystique's recent memory. Then he became furious. "Eric, you actually kidnapped my student." Magneto said, "No kidnapping, just asking them to go out and have fun." "Charles, from now on, you are not allowed to use your psychic abilities to control anyone in the Brotherhood. I will return them to you afterwards." Professor Charles said, "Eric, you have changed. You would never do such a thing before." Magneto snorted coldly. "In the past, I still had illusions about humans and you, but now, it's gone. Charles, only one of humans and mutants can survive, so leave." Professor Charles has always been soft-hearted, and his students are his weakness. He sighed and left Mystique's consciousness. Mystique returned to normal. She put down her hands and sneered, "Charles's soft-hearted problem will never change in this life. So, he is not suitable to lead mutants." Magneto looked down and said through gritted teeth, "That kid should be here soon. This time, I must make him look good." Mystique shook her head. "He may not take action. Even if he does take action, he can't get past the 2 hurdles of me and the Red Devil." Magneto said, "Don't underestimate him." At this time, Storm, Beast Hank, Colossus and other X-Men came from a distance to join the battle. The fighter jets were parked in the distance. After all, Magneto was here. Storm had learned about the kidnapping of the boy from Professor Charles. She was very angry, her eyes turned white, and she flew into the sky surrounded by the strong wind. Then, she controlled lightning and prepared to bombard the round tower. Upon seeing this, Mystique immediately activated the Mark suit and flew towards Storm. On the way, she controlled the suit to pop out 6 micro-missiles and shoot them at Storm. Iron Man. Storm was startled and hurriedly used lightning to blow up the missile. Mystique sneered, rushed in front of Storm, raised her hand, and blasted her to the ground with a pulse cannon. Mystique was about to give chase when 2 red lasers roared towards her. She hurriedly dodged. Just as Cyclops was about to continue his attack, several large rocks hit him hard from the fortress. Chin hurriedly moved the big stone away with her telekinesis. The 2 sides went back and forth, and the fight became more and more fierce. Generally speaking, the Brotherhood had the advantage, and the X-Men were unable to break into the Steel Fortress. At S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Nick Fury was watching the battle in Manhattan on the big screen while yelling into the phone, launching missiles. "Are you okay with your brain? That's Magneto. Are you going to send him weapons? A bunch of idiots." Nick Fury hung up the phone bitterly, and then asked his adjutant Maria Hill, "What is the use of Magneto's instrument? Has the technical department analyzed it?" Maria Hill replied, "No, they only speculated that the instrument may be related to magnetism." "Do they still need to analyze this?" Fury cursed, and at this time, an employee shouted excitedly, "Director, I know what that instrument is for. It can transform ordinary people into mutants." "Convert ordinary people into mutants?" Nick Fury's expression changed, and then he asked suspiciously, "How do you know?" "Kaidu is live broadcasting. The employee raised his mobile phone. Luo Shan from Clarion TV was broadcasting live. Magneto has developed an instrument that can transform ordinary people into mutants. This is his purpose tonight. He wants to transform everyone in Manhattan into mutants. Mutant. The bad thing is that Magneto's instrument has never been used before, and no one knows whether it will be successful or what the side effects will be. Once you fail, you are likely to become a ball of meat paste. I am not being alarmist. Genetic collapse, whatever happens is normal. The above content comes from a contribution from a mysterious person. We will publish it as soon as possible. You can always believe it in the Daily Bugle. Quote. Nick Fury looked extremely sad, not only because of Magneto, but also because of this information. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the world's #1 intelligence agency, but the director actually wants to obtain key information from Kuaiduo. If this spreads out, people will laugh to death, right? I don't want to lose face, right? The intelligence department is full of rubbish. Nick Fury cursed and shouted at the employees who were waiting for praise. If you play hard and fast during work hours, you will be fined 3 months' salary. Now go back to work. The employees were dumbfounded. Although I was indeed playing Kuaiduo, I provided important information. Nick Fury ignored the poor employee. He pondered for a moment and ordered Hill, let Barton and the others speed up and get to the battlefield as soon as possible. No matter what, Magneto must be stopped. In addition, let the military send fighter planes to circle around Manhattan. Once Magneto activates the instrument, he will immediately launch missiles towards Times Square. At that time, he may not be able to control the missiles. Quote. Hill reminded, Magneto may not be defenseless. Whether he is prepared or not, we have to give it a try. Nick Fury said, now it depends on the performance of Barton, Coulson, the X-Men, and a little Spider. Hill hesitated for a moment and said, Magneto's goal is the entire Manhattan, and the Ghost Rider should come out and beat him up, just like last time. I have asked Natasha to find him, but no one knows whether he will take action. We cannot place our hopes entirely on him. Nick Fury sighed, and the idea of creating an Avengers team became more and more determined. S.H.I.E.L.D. needed a special team. Speaking of which, Wolverine Logan would be perfect for the Avengers. Nick Fury's heart moved. In fact, he and Logan had fought in the Vietnam War together, but Logan had long forgotten it. Roxanne's report quickly spread throughout Manhattan through TikTok. The citizens were frightened and fled frantically. They did not want to become mutants, not to mention that Magneto's broken instrument was not reliable at all. Unfortunately, the Brotherhood had already made preparations, and there was traffic jam in the city. Even the steel bridge had problems, and many people were stuck on the road. Iron Man is captured and can't get out. It's over now. No, I don't want to become a mutant. Fear and despair gradually spread in Manhattan. Andrew nodded with satisfaction. When radiation waves appear in the sky, there will definitely be many people willing to trade their souls for safety. The truth is always a double-edged sword. At this time, Andrew sensed something and turned his head to look at the street below. There was a car accident there. Someone was trapped in the car and couldn't get out, and he was crying anxiously. At this moment, a woman wearing a mask and a sweatshirt jumped from the second floor to the car. Then, she pulled hard and pulled the door down completely. The car owner was stunned. Before he could say anything, the woman threw away the car door, fired spider webs at the sign above, and left quickly. The people were shocked. Why did Spider-Man become a woman? This Spider-Woman is none other than Gwen. She didn't have the guts to get involved in the battle in Times Square and ran outside to save people. It's worth mentioning that her webbing came from the Osborn group, stolen. This girl Gwen looks quiet, but she is actually full of adventure, or in other words, a death-defying spirit. Andrew shook his head and didn't pay much attention. As long as he was here, Gwen would never really die no matter how much he tried to commit suicide. At the same time, in a building near Times Square, Psylocke couldn't help complaining after reading the content on Kuaishou. Did Magneto get kicked in the head by a donkey? Can you even come up with such a bad idea? Forget it. No, it's none of my business. Get out of here quickly. At this moment, Psylocke's cell phone rang. After she answered the call, a woman's voice came from the other side. America's top mercenary, Psylocke. Lingdi said, yes, I don't care where you got my mobile phone number. I just ask, Do you have enough money? My charges are very expensive. I'm Pepper Potts, president of Stark Corporation. Pepper said. Psylocke, your number was given to me by Jarvis. It found that you were in Times Square. I hope you can help me rescue Tony. It's not easy to save Tony Stark from Magneto. Lingdi looked out the window and smiled. I have to pay more. Pepper said without hesitation. Rescue Tony, I will give you $10 million. If he is unscathed, I will double the reward. Wow, she is indeed a woman who can take charge of Iron Man's house. She is so heroic. Psylocke smiled and said, don't worry, I promise to give you a complete Tony Stark. Okay, Jarvis will assist you, Psylocke. If you can save Tony, you will gain my friendship. Pepper said, my friendship is very valuable. I don't like making friends, but I like money. Lingdi put down the phone and went back to the car to change into a set of clothes, a very bold high-cut tight-fitting outfit that showed off her beautiful figure to the fullest. Apart from her clothes, Psylocke didn't take anything else, including her samurai sword. Then, she jumped onto a tall building, waiting for the opportunity to take action. Isn't that boy coming? At the top of the tower, seeing that Andrew had not appeared for a long time, Magneto snorted in displeasure and shouted down, let's get started. Traitors, dedicate your lives to the cause of mutantkind. Below the tower, a mutant's hands glowed with purple light, and then, the purple light spread from his hands to the captured Epsilon-level mutant. The mutants all screamed, and their vitality was greatly extracted by the purple light. Then, the purple light rose into the sky and sank into Magneto's body. Magneto felt that he was about to explode, and he hurriedly put his hand on the controller. The controller started, and the metal circle quickly rotated from slow to fast under the influence of magnetism. Immediately afterwards, a white light that grew larger and larger lit up above the instrument, which was a radiation energy wave. After the energy wave appeared, the surrounding magnetic field began to become chaotic, and the live broadcast screen kept fluctuating. Nick Fury hurriedly shouted, launch missiles, Coulson, Barton, find cover. The 6 fighter planes circling nearby heard the order and immediately flew towards Manhattan. Then, they pressed the buttons at the same time, and 6 missiles shot towards the tower with long white tails. The opportunity has come. When Psylocke saw the missile, she immediately used her mental energy to condense a long purple whip and swung it towards the spikes of the tower. Then, she ran forward a few steps and swung it with all her strength. What? Psylocke isn't afraid of missiles. Of course she's not afraid, she knows very well that Magneto can definitely deal with those missiles. A bunch of idiots, who told you I used all my strength? Magneto smiled disdainfully. He raised a hand and the missile circled in the air and returned along the original path. The pilots' expressions changed drastically and they hurriedly controlled the fighter planes to avoid it. Unfortunately, under the precise guidance of Magneto, these fighter planes were all hit by missiles. Boom boom boom, 6 fighters turned into 6 fireballs and fell from the sky. When the citizens saw the fighter plane turning into a fireball, their hearts sank. At the same time, as the magnetism increased, the live broadcast screen began to disappear. The radiation wave is coming soon. Everyone, run away or hide in the basement. After Luo Shan finished her last words, she ran as fast as she could towards the underground parking lot ahead. As far as she knew, the parking lot was very deep and might be able to avoid the radiation waves. Fight. Seeing that the missile failed, the X-Men, Coulson, Barton, Spider-Man and others gritted their teeth and tried their best to break through the steel fortress. Mystique, Toad and others tried their best to block it. Whether the mutants can succeed in their great cause will depend on watch this time. At the same time, Psylocke jumped onto the tower, and then she quickly climbed to Tony Stark's side and used her mental energy to condense the knife to split the wire. Hot girl, come on. Tony was overjoyed. At this moment, a red figure suddenly appeared next to Psylocke and struck her head with a knife. Psylocke hurriedly dodged and the red devil in a suit smiled and disappeared. Psylocke felt bad and was about to escape. The iron bars on the tower tied her up like ropes, but it was Magneto who took action. Lingdi sighed and said, it seems that we can't make this money. Tony's hope failed and he said unhappily, you still have time to regret not making money. We are going to die. It's you who is dying, not me. Magneto basically doesn't kill mutants. Besides, the instrument probably won't have any effect on us mutants. Lingdi said easily. If not for this, how would she accept this task? Tony became more and more unhappy. He looked at the street below and couldn't help but mutter to himself, it's already this time, why doesn't that powerful and pushy guy show up riding a motorcycle to attract attention? A new era of mutants begins now. After solving the trouble, Magneto activated the instrument with all his strength, and the radiation energy waves expanded wildly, and all streets in Manhattan were clearly visible. The hearts of the citizens sank to the bottom. At this moment, a reverse cross spacecraft suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, the citizens, who were full of fear and despair, were pulled into the illusion. Hello, I am the messenger of hell, Yelena said to the man in the suit with a smile on her face. As long as you are willing to sign your soul after death to us in hell, we will save you from Manhattan. Hell messenger. The man in the suit was shocked. He thought for a moment and asked, can you really save me? Of course. Yelena released several light screens and said, you should have heard of the Peace Knights. They are the rescue messengers sent by our hell. We have been saving people. In addition, this spaceship is also ours. After you sign the contract, we will send robots to rescue you into the spacecraft. Magneto's radiation waves cannot penetrate our spaceship. Quote. The Peace Knights are actually the Hell Knights. The man in the suit was a little dumbfounded and asked, how do I know if you devils can be trustworthy? We respect the contract, and the number of people saved by the Peace Knights is not just 1 or 2. Yelena said, the people we rescued are still alive. We will wait patiently until you die before collecting your souls. The man in the suit was still hesitant. He said, it's not the time to despair yet. The Fire Angel might come out to save us, just like before. Sir, I'm sorry, that Ghost Rider is our knight from hell, not an angel from heaven. Yelena's smile became even wider. The reason why he took action was to save the contractor who signed the contract. Are the Fire Angels from your hell? The man in the suit was completely dumbfounded, even a little broken. The angel he admired was actually a demon from hell. Can there be trust in this world anymore? Yelena said, there are also angels in hell. Sir, would you like to sign a contract? If you don't sign it, I will send you away. There are many people in danger now. I am very busy. We also have performance appraisals in hell. Hell also cares about performance. The man in the suit was speechless. He gritted his teeth and said, I'll sign. In another office, a female white-collar worker adjusted her glasses and said, since the Fire Angel is yours, he will definitely take action again. Why should I sign the contract? He may not take action. The blonde Black Widow said, this time, we dispatched a total of 5,000 robots, and they can only save up to 5,000 people. If the number of people who signed the contract is less than this number, the Fire Angel will not take action, because the robots can take care of everything. If more than 5,000 people sign the contract, the Fire Angel will take action to deal with Magneto. We in hell abide by the contract the most. As long as you sign, we will definitely protect your safety. Now the question is, do you want to bet on how many people sign the contract? Quote. The female white-collar worker hesitated. She gritted her teeth and said, I can give you my soul after death, but you have to save me and my children. The blonde Black Widow smiled and handed over the contract. Okay. In the office, Andrew looked at the rising number of contracts and was very satisfied. But then again, when did Ghost Rider become the spiritual support of Manhattan citizens? This unscientific. Ghost Rider is too cool. I need to reduce the exposure in the future. Frank, you go and have some fun with Mystique, and everyone else can call it a day. Andrew confessed and used the teleportation technique to teleport to the corner of Times Square. The number of contracts had exceeded tens of thousands, and the number of robots was insufficient, so he had to take action himself. Reborn in hell, I keep my word, I promise to protect you, and I will definitely protect you. This time, Andrew did not turn into the Ghost Rider. He kicked a section of the steel fence away, and then strode towards the tower. Magneto immediately noticed the low-key Andrew and immediately put away most of the magnetism. The metal circle rotated slowly, and the radiation waves condensed above and did not spread outward. Toad, bring someone to stop that kid. Mystique flew back and shouted to Toad. Toad was about to take Big Steel Tooth to stop him, but Barton shot an arrow, grazing his scalp and sinking into the chest of a mutant behind him. So dangerous. Toad couldn't help but swallowed his saliva. If he hadn't reacted quickly just now, he would have died. At the same time, the X-Men and agents fought desperately to trap the Brotherhood's mutants and prevent them from disturbing Mr. Wong. With Mr. Wang's strength, once he walks in front of Magneto, Magneto can start preparing for his funeral. Professor Charles's horrified voice rang in Mystique's mind. Riven, make Eric stop quickly, otherwise he will die. Charles, you don't have to scare me. That kid is indeed very strong, but not strong enough to kill Eric. In fact, he can't even pass my level. Mystique didn't believe it. Professor Charles was about to reveal the identity of King Andrew. At this moment, accompanied by a burst of fierce gunfire, a suit launched an attack on Mystique. This suit is all black, with a white skull pattern on the chest. It is larger than Mark's suit and looks very thick. In addition, it is full of weapons, machine guns, sniper rifles, grenades, micro-missiles. It can be said to be armed to the teeth. This is Frank Custer's Punisher suit. Unlike other suits, this suit only pursues offense. Because of Tony's ideas, Mark's suit was very light and could not block the Punisher's terrifying firepower, and was sent flying in all directions. Idiot, do you know how to control Mark's suit? Dodge, attack from above, launch smoke grenades, you're pissing me off, you idiot. When Tony saw that Mark's suit was defeated by the Punisher suit, he was yelling at him. Psylocke looked at him speechlessly and complained, whose side are you from? Yes, that's the enemy. Tony reacted and shouted loudly, my suit didn't lose, it was the controller inside who lost. Psylocke couldn't help rolling her eyes. How much does Tony Stark care about face? Soon, Andrew came to the bottom of the tower. He looked up and asked, Magneto, why don't you take action? Magneto said coldly, I'll wait for you to come up. Seek death. Andrew shook his head and walked straight up the tower. Then, he was parallel to the ground and walked up step by step. Tony complained, hurry up and have people press down on Newton's coffin board. He is about to climb out again. Hey, why did I say again? No one paid attention to Tony. At this time, the Red Devil suddenly appeared behind Andrew and stabbed Andrew straight in the back of the heart. Without even looking behind him, Andrew grabbed the Red Devil's wrist with his backhand. The powerful Red Devil felt that his wrist was about to break. He was startled and hurriedly turned into a red mist and disappeared. Everyone stared around intently, waiting for the Red Devil to reappear, but surprisingly, the Red Devil seemed to evaporate and never appeared again. Where did the Red Devil go? The Red Devil himself wanted to know this question. After teleporting, he appeared out of thin air in a gloomy place with countless ghosts looming around him. Even the Red Devil was a bit creepy. The Red Devil tried to teleport, but it was useless. He couldn't help but ask, where is this place? This is a little hell on earth. Red Devil, you disinfect it first, and then we'll send you to the real hell. A ghost flew in front of the Red Devil and said coldly. The Red Devil complained, hell on earth. Where did hell come from on earth? And what the hell is disinfection? You have to disinfect before entering hell. When did hell become so hygienic? Our hell is different from those dirty and messy hells. The ghost snorted coldly, and a large amount of white mist fell from the sky to cover the Red Devil and began to disinfect him. In fact, the so-called disinfection is to eliminate the magic marks that may be on the Red Devil, so that the location of the rebirth in hell will not be known to other devils. This set of disinfection methods was developed by Andrew himself and is very reliable. The Red Devil asked in shock and anger, what are you doing? I tell you, I am not someone to be trifled with. If you offend me, you will not end well. No one paid attention to the Red Devil. After the disinfection was completed, he was transported to the throne of rebirth in hell. Andrew, the body of the devil, sat high on the throne and said lazily, kneel down and talk to you later. The Red Devil, who was very arrogant before, immediately fell to his knees with a thud, his whole body trembling, and after confirming his aura, he was the real devil. Let's not talk about the Red Devil for the moment. On the high tower, Andrew continued to walk up. Soon, he came to the middle position, where the three Tonys were. Wolverine Logan growled, let me go, I'm going to kill that old guy Magneto. Lingdi smiled and said, handsome, we meet again, do you want to exchange phone numbers? Tony said excitedly, boy, let me go quickly. Without my help, you will definitely not be able to defeat Magneto. Andrew ignored Wolverine and Tony. He said to Psylocke with a disdainful look on his face, "You are really here to fight in this way? You obviously have such a good talent, but you don't know how to develop it. You just do some crooked things. I don't know what it means." The first half of Andrew's words made Psylocke want to beat him, but the second half of his words made Psylocke's eyes light up. "Can I develop my abilities further?" Psylocke is obsessed with power, because the more powerful, the higher the commission. Andrew didn't answer Psylocke. He wanted to take a long shot and catch the big fish. Tony shouted impatiently, "Hey, boy, don't waste time, let me go quickly." "As you wish." Andrew's right foot shook slightly, and the steel on Tony and the three of them broke at the same time, and then they fell to the ground together. "I didn't let you let it go like this," Tony yelled, and at this time, strong winds appeared around them, and the three people's descent slowed down significantly, but it was Storm who rescued them. Andrew ignored Tony and the others. He slashed through the air, and a black light composed of black flames flashed. The tower was cut in the middle, and the upper part tilted to the right and fell. Although Andrew is absolutely sure to defeat Magneto, it does not mean that he will foolishly step into Magneto's trap. This is not a question of strength, but a question of IQ. Chapter 51. Seeing Andrew's sudden attack, Magneto hurriedly raised his hands. The steel under Andrew's feet suddenly dented and deformed, tightly wrapping around his feet like boots. Immediately afterwards, a large amount of steel on the tower turned into spears, and was densely shot at Andrew from above and below. The density was so high that it was like thousands of troops throwing spears at the same time. Coulson and others couldn't help but exclaimed, "Magneto is truly Magneto, one person is as good as an army." "Boy, you're dead." Magneto looked proud. This move actually came with a follow-up move. If Andrew could block these steel spears, Magneto would fuse all the spears together and turn them into a giant iron ball. At that time, regardless of Andrew's kung fu skills, master, or Jedi, all die. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Magneto out of thin air and said with a smile, "Surprise. This is impossible." Magneto looked shocked. At this moment, he thought of something and asked in shock, "Can you teleport?" "My speed is faster than teleportation." Andrew shrugged and said, "As soon as you started, I jumped into the sky." Because the speed was too fast, an afterimage was left at the original position. Tisk tisk. It took such a big battle to deal with an afterimage. "I am worthy of Wan Tai, King. I'm Magneto." Magneto's face flushed with anger, and he shouted, "Do you think you won? This battle has just begun. I know you have prepared many means, but I'm sorry, you have lost since I stood in front of you." Andrew said, "Wan Iron King, look into my eyes." Magneto subconsciously looked into Andrew's eyes, and he saw two groups of flames, two groups of dark flames that could ignite his soul. Eye of Judgment, activate. Countless sinful images appeared in Magneto's mind. For example, he controlled the steel bars to leave the building, causing the building to collapse and countless civilians to die tragically. "I'm not guilty. Humans have been persecuting us mutants. They deserve to die. I killed humans for mutants. I'm not wrong." Magneto shouted loudly, and the image of sin in his mind immediately disappeared. The Eye of Judgment is not invincible. If the person being judged thinks he is right, the trial will fail. For example, in the comics, Frank the Punisher once resisted the Eye of Judgment of the Ghost Rider. Extremists are trouble. Andrew shook his head and said, "It's okay to kill ordinary people, but what about killing mutants?" A large number of pictures popped up in Magneto's mind again, and in every picture, there were mutants. 30 years ago, in order to steal a piece of confidential information, Magneto ignored everyone's dissuasion and forcibly sent 2 mutants to sneak into the laboratory, causing them to become military experiments. 20 years ago, Magneto made a mistake and a branch of mutants was eliminated by the human army. 10 years ago, Magneto thought 2 mutants were traitors and killed them by mistake. Now, Magneto is ready to sacrifice the little naughty boy for his own plan. Magneto could not deny these sins, and his soul was ignited. Then, more sins emerged, including betraying Charles, abandoning his children, etc. Magneto is not emotionless, but his emotions belong entirely to mutants. In his eyes, humans are another kind of creature. This is why in the movie, after Mystique transforms back into an ordinary person, Magneto directly abandons her. Magneto is too extreme. No, Magneto roared unwillingly, but could not stop his soul from burning. In fact, he was not afraid of death, but he could not die before the mutants' great cause was accomplished. At this moment, Magneto's eyes flashed, and he appeared out of thin air on a floating platform. A ball of golden human-shaped flames said coldly to him, "Sign a contract and give me your soul, and I will save your life." It's the soul, not the soul after death. In addition, this does not violate the agreement between Andrew and the Ancient One, because Magneto is the enemy. Magneto was stunned for a moment, then asked, "If I give you my soul, wouldn't you be able to kill me at any time? Do you think you have a choice? Sign it or not sign it? Decide quickly." Andrew sneered. If Magneto didn't sign, he would kill him and force his soul into hell. Of course, this is a bit wasteful. It is better for Magneto to be alive. You must know that this crisis will bring tens of thousands of souls to Andrew. Magneto's face turned black with anger, but he did not get angry because Andrew was right. He had no choice. Give me the power to kill that kid, and I will sell my soul to you. Sorry, even if I lend you my power, you still can't kill him. Andrew said, "How to kill yourself? Is that boy so strong?" Magneto was shocked. He gritted his teeth and said, "I can sign the contract, but within 5 years, you cannot take away my soul." Agree. Andrew smiled and signed a contract with Magneto. Then, with a wave of his hand, he drove Magneto's consciousness out of the illusion. After Magneto's consciousness returned to his body, the fire in his soul quickly extinguished. However, due to the burning just now, he became very weak and even a little unsteady. Magneto gritted his teeth and prepared to fight, but at this moment, a fist hit his head, his vision went black, and he fainted to the ground. Done. Andrew clapped his hands. This time the harvest was really good. As soon as Magneto fainted, the instrument immediately stopped and the radiation wave quickly dissipated. At the same time, the steel spear and the broken tower quickly fell down. Everyone below was stunned. Although they knew that Magneto was not Andrew King's opponent, no one thought that Magneto would be defeated so quickly. Sure enough, Ghost Rider is the strongest. Andrew bent down and grabbed Magneto. Professor Charles thought he was going to kill Magneto and hurriedly shouted, "Mr. Wong, please show mercy." Andrew did not respond to Professor Charles. He grabbed Magneto and jumped to a nearby building. The next moment, the tower crashed down, and countless steel fragments shot out in the dust. Both the enemy and ourselves avoided at the same time, and the scene was a mess. When the steel fragments and dust subsided, Andrew jumped onto the street with Magneto. Then, he threw Magneto to Coulson and said, "The reward for helping me clean up last time." Coulson hurriedly caught Magneto, his face full of surprise. He really didn't expect that he could get such a big reward for doing something small for Andrew Wong, who was Magneto, the most wanted criminal in the United States. "Ghost Rider is so particular," Coulson said with a flattering look on his face. "Mr. Wong, if you have anything to ask, S.H.I.E.L.D. will do its best to serve you." Barton on the side couldn't help but turn his face sideways. Coulson is so embarrassing. Seeing Andrew hand over Magneto to S.H.I.E.L.D., Professor Charles frowned slightly. It seemed that Eric was going to suffer a little, but this was what he asked for. Andrew waved his hand, turned around and left, and Psylocke hurriedly chased after him. After the battle, Frank stopped attacking Mystique and turned around to fly towards the spaceship in the sky. Then, the spaceship took off and disappeared from everyone's sight. Eric. Mystique immediately flew towards Coulson, trying to rescue Magneto. At this moment, her steel suit suddenly malfunctioned and fell straight down. However, it was Tony Stark who broke through the suit through his mobile phone, programmed to regain control of the suit. Mystique cursed and controlled the suit to disintegrate. Then, she fell from the air and rolled into a nearby alley. Withdraw. Seeing that the situation was over, Toad and others retreated one after another. The X-Men never killed them all and did not stop them. Coulson hesitated and asked Barton to lead people to hunt down Mystique. As for the others, we will talk about it later. Amid the chaos, the disaster came to an end for the time being. Nick Fury breathed a long sigh of relief when he received the news. Hill, notify the World Security Council of a meeting. Nick Fury said, "There are more and more disasters. We can no longer stand still. We must speed up research, increase weapon development, and absorb more useful talents." Maria Hill nodded. Director Fury had only one core meaning: want money, want money, want money. The big move is indeed different. There are more than 60,000 souls. In addition, after the incident, a new world merged into this world. Andrew was very satisfied. Sure enough, if you want to collect souls, you still have to rely on big moves. He is now very much looking forward to New York being invaded by aliens. The one who signed the most contracts this time is Yelena. As a reward, I will help her heal her body in advance and turn her back into a normal woman. Andrew used his consciousness to announce to the Black Widows. The Black Widows congratulated Yelena one after another. Their hearts were filled with envy. Fortunately, as long as they continued to work for Boss, they would be able to return to normal sooner or later. Thank you, Boss. Yelena was so excited that her efforts were not in vain, and Natasha would definitely envy her. At this time, Psylocke caught up from behind. She stopped in front of Andrew and asked expectantly, "Master, what do you mean when you say I don't know how to develop my talents?" Literal meaning. Andrew glanced at Psylocke and said indifferently, "I don't like people blocking my way, get out of the way." Lingdi said, "Master, please guide me to develop my talent. I can help you with 3 things for free. If you are not willing, I can also pay the tuition." After hesitating for a moment, Lingdi gritted his teeth and said, "The tuition is very high." Andrew smiled, and Psylocke thought she had succeeded in impressing the other person, so she also laughed. The next second, she felt the surrounding scenery fly forward quickly, and then hit the wall with a bang, but was kicked into the wall by Andrew. Andrew took out the checkbook from his pocket and wrote a number. Then, he walked up to Psylocke, put the check on her chest, and said, I don't like people blocking my way." After saying that, Andrew walked away straight away. Psylocke broke free from the wall and cursed unhappily, "The master is the master, he has such a bad temper." Lingdi took the check out of his chest and glanced at it. He was shocked to see that it was actually $100,000. Not only is he a master, but he is also a rich man. This kick is worth it. Lingdi immediately put the check into her pocket. She looked at Andrew's back and felt a little headache. The master was not short of money and did not need her help. How should she impress him? "Hell," Andrew said to the Red Devil kneeling in front of him, "you can speak." The Red Devil said with great respect, "Lord Demon King, I am willing to dedicate my soul to you in exchange for the opportunity to serve under your command." The attitude is pretty good. Andrew snorted, raised his hand and sent a ray of light into the Red Devil's body to form a phoenix brand, which meant that the Red Devil's soul officially belonged to the rebirth hell. The Red Devil said excitedly, "Thank you, Lord Demon King." Andrew said, "Tell me about the Hellfire Club." The Hellfire Club is led by the Black King and the White Queen, and only accepts elite mutants. They hold huge power and wealth. For example, they basically have the final say in the casino. The Red Devil did not dare to neglect and told everything he knew. "I am also a member of the Hellfire Club. I came to help Magneto this time because of the request of Mystique Raven." The Black King is indeed not dead. Is it the Hellfire Club? Andrew thought for a moment and said, "Go help Fungmo and the others collect souls. I will call you if you need them." "Yes, Lord Demon King." The Red Devil nodded respectfully, and Andrew waved his hand, sending the Red Devil out of rebirth hell. Seeing the familiar modern buildings around him, the Red Devil couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and his back was covered in cold sweat. That was the devil in front of him, and he would be in catastrophe if he was not careful. "I should have known better not to help that fool Magneto, but then again, that's not necessarily a bad thing." The Red Devil's eyes flashed and he thought to himself, "With the power of the Demon King, he will definitely be able to help me save my people. Before that, I have to perform well and make contributions." After the Red Devil left rebirth hell, Andrew thought for a while and called Ethan over. He asked, "How are you doing with your research on the mechanical part of Taskmaster? Can you copy it?" Ethan was the one who saved Tony in the Middle East. After his death, his soul was taken to rebirth hell by Andrew and served as an assistant to Howard and Teslac. Ethan, who existed in the form of a robot, replied, "Boss, I can copy Antonia's mechanical prosthetic limbs. However, we are all robots in hell, so mechanical prosthetic limbs have no meaning to us, right? It really means nothing to you, but it means a lot to the disabled people on Earth." Andrew smiled and said, do you think they would be willing to exchange the soul after death for a mechanical leg, a mechanical hand, a mechanical spine, and a mechanical eye? Ethan was dumbfounded. Could this be possible? He is truly worthy of being a demon king. Don't look like that. Our hell is not bad. They are lucky to be here. Andrew said. I will open a laboratory for you, and you will specialize in human machinery. Whether it is mechanical prostheses, mechanical internal organs, or mechanical skeletons, I want them all. Our hell is indeed not bad. Ethan nodded and said, Boss, I will do my best to research, but what about after-sales service? Human machinery must be repaired and maintained frequently. After sales, Andrew has a toothache. Why is the style of rebirth in hell becoming more and more weird? Do you want to return it within 7 days without any reason? Andrew said, you first research the human body machinery, and we will do the rest slowly. Just tell us what resources we need. Ethan said, other resources are easy to find, but I need some animals for experiments. It's a small matter. I will use magic to make some unconscious bodies for you. Andrew said that this is just the beginning. Next, he will recruit more scientists. As the saying goes, technology changes lives. This style of painting is completely hopeless. Taj. The eldest disciple Cassius sat in front of Ancient One and said respectfully, Teacher, you are back. Gu nodded and put the tea leaves into the teacup to make tea. Although she had just come back from outside, there was no dust on her body and she was as elegant as before. The fact that Ancient One allowed Andrew to enter the earth was publicized by a certain demon king. Under the guidance of that demon king, the demon kings and extraterrestrial evil gods thought that there was something wrong with Ancient One. So, they were ready to do something and kept making small moves, such as letting believers summon their projections and the like. Naturally, Ancient One would not indulge those demon kings and cut off all their tentacles. When the demon kings saw that Ancient One was still the same Ancient One without any change, they immediately chose to retreat and beat up the projection of a certain demon king. Teacher, Cassius said straight to the point, I have been observing the Devil King during this period. He really has a bottom line. In order to protect the contractor, he is even willing to give up the opportunity to obtain more souls. The problem is, I don't know if he is acting. If he is, when he becomes stronger, he will definitely come back to bite us in the earth. Even if not, people will change. Teacher, I think it is too dangerous to put that devil into the earth. The devil from hell is not worthy of trust. Quote, he's not acting, but people do change. Ancient One looked at Cassius deeply and said, the problem is, we have to do this. Cassius was surprised. This must be done. Teacher, is there something wrong with the earth? Ji did not answer. She said, Cassius, it is right to stick to principles, but sometimes, for the sake of the overall situation, we must know how to be flexible. Adaptation. Teacher, I understand. Cassius' eyes flashed, and he stood up to leave. Ji looked at his back and gently put down the teacup in his hand. The future was changing. In the room, Cassius carefully pondered what Ji said. Is there any flexibility? If I make a deal with that demon king and gain eternal life, will the teacher blame me? Immortality is what Cassius has always pursued. In addition, he also wants to resurrect his wife and children and be with them forever. At this moment, a voice sounded in Cassius' mind. Cassius, do you want to know the secret of the Ancient One's eternal life? Cassius turned his head sharply and found that an ancient book collected some time ago was emitting a dark aura. If he sensed it correctly, it should be the aura of Dormammu, the Lord of Darkness. Cassius didn't waste any time and immediately built a golden magic circle to completely seal the ancient book. Dormammu's consciousness in the ancient book was confused. How could this happen? According to my own observation of Cassius, he should be very concerned about this matter. In order to deliver this ancient book to Cassius, Dormammu put a lot of effort into it, even sacrificing a projection to be blown up by Ancient One, but the result is this. Dormammu's consciousness is a little crazy. Cassius naturally doesn't know that much. His mind is now filled with eternal life. Cassius took a breath and made a decision. Observe for a while. If the devil really keeps his word, why not trade with him? The next day, TV stations, newspapers, and the internet were all talking about Magneto's riot in Manhattan last night. People became more and more repulsive towards mutants, and some even called on the president to lock up all mutants. Senator Kelly took the opportunity to propose a mutant registration bill, which received a lot of public support. The living environment of mutants became increasingly worse. Speaking of which, this is a good thing for Andrew, because it will allow more mutants to choose to become ordinary people. Business in Times Square will last for a long time. Unlike other newspapers, the Daily Bugle did not accuse mutants. Its content was mainly divided into 3 parts: Black Spider-Man, mocking Iron Man, and praising the great Ghost Rider. The Daily Bugle not only chose the most embarrassing photo of me, but also used me as a stepping stone to support Ghost Rider. Is Ghost Rider your biological father? Also, he didn't appear at all this time, okay. The person who solved Magneto was a kung fu kid who was not scientific at all. Tony was so angry that he wanted to buy the Daily Bugle, but Andrew refused directly. He had spent so much effort to promote the Daily Bugle as the conscience of Manhattan, how could he sell it? In addition, Peter was almost fired for abandoning Roxanne. In the end, Jameson looked at the exclusive photos of Spider-Man and reluctantly kept Peter as a temporary worker. Putting aside the angry Tony and poor Peter, Professor Charles looked at the newspaper in his hand and couldn't help but sigh. Last night, he guessed that many people would attack mutants today, but he didn't expect that it would be like this. Oops. After hesitating for a moment, Professor Charles called Nick Fury and said, "I agree to initially cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D. However, you can talk to him about Logan's matter yourself. I will not interfere." "Okay, don't worry, I will prevent the mutant registration bill from passing," Nick Fury said with a smile on his face. In fact, the reason why many newspapers accused mutants was that S.H.I.E.L.D. was secretly controlling it. Nick Fury doesn't want to exterminate mutants, he just wants to control them so the world will be a safer place. It shouldn't be difficult to convince Logan. With Tony, Barton, and Natasha, there are 4 Avengers team. Nick Fury was a little excited. With the Avengers team here, S.H.I.E.L.D. would be able to deal with those disasters by himself in the future, without having to ask the Ghost Rider. Nick Fury became more and more afraid of the Ghost Rider. The reason was simple. The opponent was really too strong. Nick Fury had trouble sleeping and eating at the thought of being unable to deal with him. At a training ground in New York, Andrew swung a wooden stick and hit Gwen quickly. Gwen kept retreating and dodging, looking a little panicked. However, at critical moments, she could always dodge the wooden stick narrowly and narrowly, which was amazing. Calm down. The most important thing in fighting is to be calm. Also, trust your own feelings. Your talent is very good, Andrew shouted. Gwen tried to calm down, but her rhythm was disrupted, and she was hit on the shoulder by Andrew with a stick. Gwen groaned in pain. Andrew did not step forward to comfort him, but asked coldly, "Do you want to continue?" "Continue." Gwen gritted her teeth and said stubbornly that last night, she was rescuing people in Manhattan and felt deeply inadequate, so she asked Andrew to teach her how to fight. Gwen doesn't want to be a superhero, she just wants to save more people. Then continue. Andrew did not expose Gwen's identity and taught Gwen to fight in a practical way. Only by persevering can she be qualified to be a superhero. Gwen is soft on the outside and strong on the inside. Not only did she persevere, but she also gradually learned to stay calm during the battle. Spider-Man has a magical spider sense. Once Gwen calmed down, Andrew's stick could no longer hit her, a mortal-level power. He nodded and stopped attacking. "Take a rest and start the next phase of training later," Andrew said. Gwen took out a breath and said very seriously, "Andrew, thank you." Andrew smiled and said, "I beat you and you thank me. My Miss Gwen, do you have any special hobbies? If so, I can reluctantly try it with you." "What nonsense." Gwen hammered Andrew in shame and anger. Andrew handed her a bottle of water and said, "Gwen, the biggest difference between humans and animals is that humans use tools. If you want to protect yourself, in addition to training, you must also learn how to use tools. Use tools." Gwen took the water, took a sip, and asked, "Use tools?" "Let's take Spider-Man as an example. His spider silk is a tool. Without spider silk, his combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced," Andrew said. However, Spider-Man does not use spider silk enough. He should modify the launcher to have multiple launch modes, such as current mode, spider silk ball mode, spider silk web mode, etc. Gwen thought thoughtfully. Modify the transmitter. Yes, In addition to launchers, Spider-Man can actually get some special weapons, such as police electric batons. Andrew nodded and said, Spider-Man has to fight criminals for a long time with his bare hands. This is not only dangerous, but also easy to damage public property. Director George has always wanted to catch him and make him pay. My dad hates Spider-Man and often scolds him at home. Gwen smiled, and then she thought of something and her smile froze. She was about to become the second Spider-Man. You are a quasi-scientist. I believe you understand the importance of tools. The brain is our most precious asset as humans. Andrew said, Okay, let's continue training. Next, we will train long-range weapons. We will practice darts first. In a few days, I will take you to the shooting range to shoot. Gwen was stunned. You don't need to shoot, right? Andrew nodded with certainty. Of course. If you don't know the performance of firearms and the actual lethality of firearms, how can you defend yourself? I will familiarize you with various firearms. If you are interested, I will get you a rocket launcher to play with. Quote. Are you sure you are a reporter and not an arms dealer? Gwen complained. I just wanted to save more people. Why did the rocket launcher come out? Thinking of something, Andrew said, By the way, let me teach you a secret first. This secret can ensure that you will be safe and sound under any circumstances. Gwen's eyes lit up. What secret is so powerful? Andrew said seriously. When you are in danger, call my name in your heart. That's not scientific. Gwen rolled her eyes at Andrew. She didn't believe it at all, and Andrew didn't care. Gwen had his power in her body, and he could project it to help her at any time. Under Andrew's strict training, Gwen grew rapidly. In fact, with the power of a spider, she was a gem that could shine with just a little polish. Gwen not only grew in fighting skills, but also in self-confidence. She put on the black and white cloaked spider suit she made herself and went to Hell's Kitchen to help people. Zitza. Gwen pointed the stick at a gun-wielding gangster. The gangster was electrocuted and fell to the ground unable to move. Gwen blinked and felt that Andrew was right. It was much simpler this way. Leave, and remember not to come to Hell's Kitchen at night. Gwen lowered her voice and said to the woman who was robbed. The woman nodded gratefully to her and ran out of the alley. Gwen was very happy after successfully rescuing people. She was about to leave when an excited voice came from the alley. Today is really my lucky day. I met 2 women with superpowers in a row. Gwen turned around and saw a man in a purple suit, who could tell at first glance was not a good guy, standing excitedly at the entrance of the alley. Next to him was a beautiful woman in a leather jacket who looked very sad. The face of the beauty in leather clothes was full of fear and despair, and she seemed to be very afraid of the man in purple clothes, but for some reason, she did not run away and kept standing there. Gwen sensed danger. She held a short stick and asked in a deep voice, Who are you? Miss, are you threatened? You can call me Kilgrave. Now, throw away your weapons and come over here. Kilgrave, or Purple Man, said excitedly. Gwen didn't want to do it, but for some reason, she threw down her weapon obediently and walked towards Purple Man. Purple Man, a big villain, has the ability to control others through viral infection. The TV series version is different from the pheromones in the comics. As for the beauty next to Purple Man, her name is Jessica Jones, a future street hero with super strength and super jump. How so? Gwen wanted to resist, but she couldn't control her body at all. She finally understood why the beautiful woman was so scared. The man in purple was really scary. Jessica Jones looked at Gwen walking over, feeling more and more desperate. This time, it was completely over. No, I don't want to be controlled. Gwen was frightened in her heart. At this moment, she remembered the secret that Andrew once said, and couldn't help shouting in her heart, Andrew. Ziren's eyes flashed, and he suddenly appeared in a place full of magma and black smoke. In front of him, stood a stalwart figure that made everyone tremble. As soon as Ziren saw him, he couldn't help but knelt down. The ground is trembling. Die. Andrew didn't talk nonsense. He slapped the palm like the sky, and the purple man's soul was blown away on the spot. In the real world, Ziren suddenly opened his eyes and fell down. Gwen and Jessica returned to normal at the same time. They looked at each other and felt confused. What is going on? Jessica thought for a moment, then cautiously stepped forward to check on Ziren, and found that he was already dead. Why did he die suddenly? Gwen looked confused. Even the movie doesn't have such an outrageous plot, right? The villain is about to succeed and dies of a sudden illness. If you perform this, you will be scolded to death. Best dead. Jessica exhaled, kicked Zaren's body away and hit it hard against the wall, almost scaring her to death before. At this time, Jessica's cell phone suddenly rang. After she answered the call, a female voice said hurriedly, "The police are coming. You run away quickly. I will pick you up at the intersection." Jessica was startled and hurriedly took Gwen to escape in the direction of the prompt. She had just kicked Zeren and was about to be caught. She couldn't even wash it off after jumping into the sea. Gwen encountered this kind of thing for the first time and had no experience at all. She ran with Jessica. Soon, the two women came to the intersection and an American Ford van was waiting for them. "Come in quickly." An outstanding-looking mixed-race female driver opened the door and shouted. The two women immediately got into the car. The female driver stepped on the accelerator and left quickly. After escaping Hell's Kitchen, Jessica asked the female driver, "Who are you? Why are you helping us? And why do you know my mobile phone number?" Sky smiled and said, "My name is Sky. I am a hacker. I happened to see you on the camera. Don't worry, I have deleted all the contents of the camera." Hacker. Gwen and Jessica were both shocked, and Andrew was also shocked. Spider-Gwen, Sky the evil Lone Star, and alcoholic Jessica, what kind of combination is this? Immediately, Andrew shook his head and didn't do anything more. Anyway, he could bear it. Every year, Times Square holds a grand New Year's Eve carnival, and this year is no exception. Even though many buildings next to the square are still under repair, in fact, this year's scale is larger than in previous years. Everyone wants to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new. Gwen hugged Andrew's arm and sighed. There have been too many disasters this year. Everyone hopes that next year will be calm and live in peace and contentment. Andrew shook his head. The idea is good, but when you look back in the future, you will find that this year is the best year in the next 10 years. Gwen was dissatisfied. Are you so pessimistic? The wheel of history cannot be stopped. Andrew said. Don't talk about this, you have been very busy recently, go shopping with me tonight. This is my first time to attend the New Year's Eve carnival. Gwen felt a little guilty and a little guilty. During this time, she, Jessica, and Sky formed a team to work as superheroes in Hell's Kitchen. They were so busy that they didn't even have time to do their homework, let alone accompany Andrew. Gwen promised, I will definitely accompany you tonight. Soon, the time came to the last few seconds of 2008. In Times Square, everyone counted down in unison. 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. 2009 has officially arrived, but it is different from what the people expected. This year is destined to not be peaceful. Everyone is hoping that the disaster will be over, but according to my guess, the disaster will only become more and more severe. In the Osborn group, Norman Osborn, who was much older than before, handed the wine glass to General Ross of the American Army Department and said. General Ross, nicknamed General Thunderbolt, took the glass and said, Our army will protect the United States. In fact, the previous disasters were not solved by the military. Norman smiled and said, General Ross, don't be angry. I'm not saying that your military doesn't do its best, but the military's power is too weak and cannot compare to those so-called superheroes. The military's strength is not weak, but it is too late to mobilize. General Ross snorted and said impatiently, Norman, what exactly do you want to say? I would say we should collaborate on developing human enhancement agents. Norman said, once the human enhancement agent is successfully researched, the army will definitely restore its glory during World War II. General Ross asked, how did I hear that your Osborn group's human enhancement potion failed? There was no failure, just a slight flaw and some of the mice went completely crazy. Norman corrected. As long as General Ross is willing to share the formula and data of the military's human enhancement experiments, I am confident that this flaw will be completely solved. Whether it is the Osborn group's human enhancement potion or the military's human enhancement experiment, they are actually restoring Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum, the serum that made Captain America's chest muscles larger than those of women. There are many similar projects in the United States, and the Osborn group's human enhancement potion is the closest product to the super soldier serum, the same level as the soldier serum restored by Howard. General Ross hesitated, and after a moment, he said, I can cooperate with the Osborn group, but in addition to the formula of the human enhancement potion, I also need the formula of the lizard potion. Norman was stunned and then said, the formula of the lizard potion. General Ross, the lizard man will produce another personality that is uncontrollable. It's okay, just treat them as animals. General Ross said, I am going to use the death row prisoners to get a few lizardmen. Their combat effectiveness is very good. Is that so? Norman hesitated and nodded. Yes, but the Osborn group will not admit it. They will only say that the formula is lost. General Ross said, no problem, Norman, I hope you won't disappoint me. Don't worry, I will never fail this time. Norman said very firmly that he had no time and must inject the human enhancement agent as soon as possible, otherwise, he would die. In addition, the Osborn group's recent performance has been too poor. Norman needs orders from the military to keep his position as chairman. Otherwise, shareholders who are like vampires will abandon him without hesitation. It's a pity that Banner can't be found. Otherwise, why would I need to cooperate with the Osborn group? General Ross thought of something and secretly sighed. Iron Man and Spider-Man are nothing compared to the Hulk. Only Ghost Rider can fight. In a simple hut in Siberia, a long-haired man with scars on his face who looked very tough and wild held up the arc reactor he had just built and said proudly, Tony Stark can do it. I can do the same thing. Ivan, you are more genius than Tony. Obadiah, a bald man with a big beard, clapped his hands excitedly. You only used one original drawing to complete the miniaturization of the arc reactor. The Starks are a group of thieves who stole everything from the Vanke family. Ivan Vanke threw the arc reactor aside and said angrily, the Stark family is living and drinking in America every day, while our Vanke family is trapped in Siberia and suffering. I must settle this account with Tony Stark, do the math. Be careful. Seeing Ivan randomly throwing the arc reactor around, Obadiah almost died of fright. Come on, that was a nuclear reactor. If it exploded, he would become the worst villain to die. Obadiah cursed secretly. These idiots are so rough and crazy in their actions. Weak chicken. Ivan looked disdainful. I used to drink vodka while making nuclear materials, but nothing happened. Why are these geniuses so unruly? Obadiah secretly gritted his teeth. On the surface, he said sincerely, Ivan, you and I both want to kill Tony Stark. We are the best allies. Ivan glanced at Obadiah and said, Obadiah, allies need to pay for each other. I have the arc reactor and a brain more powerful than Tony Stark. What do you have? Obadiah became more and more annoyed. He said, I have funds and military connections. Ivan, without me, you will never be able to kill Tony Stark. Apart from other things, if you want to build a steel suit, you must at least go $2 billion. You can't just go fight Tony with 2 electric whips strapped to you, right? Ivan held a toothpick in his mouth and asked, relationships with the military. Aren't you a wanted criminal? Without the help of the military, how could I have been able to survive until now? Obadiah said, the military wanted the steel suit, but Tony refused to give it, so the military secretly helped me. Ivan, as long as we kill Tony Stark, the military will be completely on our side, and by then, you will become the next Tony Stark. Quote, I'm better than Tony Stark. Ivan snorted coldly. Obadiah, I know you have many calculations, but I don't care. I only have one purpose, to kill Tony Stark and make that thief family pay the price. Of course, Tony Stark must die. Obadiah said, pack up, I will take you to Justin Hammer of Hammer Industries. Justin Hammer, Ivan said. This name sounds like someone who was taken advantage of, the kind who gave money and effort, but was tricked and got nothing. He is the one who has been taken advantage of. I know him very well and it is not difficult at all to convince him to support us financially. Obadiah laughed loudly. Don't tell him our purpose. Stark Group is preparing to hold the Stark Industry Expo in Flushing. When the time comes, we will give him a big surprise. Ivan spit out the toothpick and said viciously, Stark Industry Expo. Humph, I want to send Tony Stark to hell when he is at his most glorious. Time came to February 2009. In the apartment, the Black Widow Natasha looked at her sister Yelena's physical examination report and asked in shock, Yelena, did you get the wrong physical examination form? Yes, it's mine. Everything is normal. Yelena took a look at the report and said, That physical examination form is for applying to join the university. She plans to go to university to improve herself and major in sales and psychology. As for their adoptive parents, they are currently living in seclusion in Russia. The Red Guard has mental problems, and Melina plans to treat him. Natasha said unhappily. What's normal? This is a physical examination form for a complete woman. Neither you nor I are complete. After hearing this, Yelena checked the surroundings with instruments to make sure there were no bugs, and then said, "You are incomplete, but I am complete. Last year, my performance ranked first among all Black Widows. Boss helped me restore my body, as a normal woman should. I have them all." Natasha's eyes lit up and she asked hurriedly, "Boss, you mean the Demon King? Can the Demon King help us restore our integrity?" "Of course, that's the Demon King," Yelena said. "But don't count on it, the boss doesn't like you, otherwise he would have recruited you a long time ago. The bodyguard group has always been short of manpower. Of course, this is normal, you are too unruly. Quote, do you think I hope to be seen in the same light by him? Also, how am I not being serious?" Natasha snorted. Natasha, will never give in to the devil. You are not serious in any way. How can someone fight, flip their hair, and keep posing to look cool? Yelena complained. "I won't tell you anymore, I'm going to school. I will win the championship again this year. Then, boss may reward me with eternal youth, or give me superpowers." Eternal youth, superpower. The more Natasha listened, the brighter her eyes became. She complained. "Are you messengers from hell or office workers? All you talk about is performance. Our hell is different from other hells. Our boss is the most powerful Demon King." Yelena said with admiration. "Don't worry, when you go to hell, I will protect you. After all, I am also the boss's bodyguard." Natasha sneered and said, "Wow, you look so awesome. Why don't you become the devil's woman so that I can walk around in hell after my death?" Yelena said, "We at Black Widow have an internal bet on who will be the first to climb into the devil's bed. The stakes are hundreds of millions and are still increasing. I think I have a good chance and the boss appreciates me." "How boring are you guys?" Natasha complained. Waiting for Yelena to go to school, she murmured to herself, "Restore wholeness, eternal youth, superpowers. I really want them all, why not just join the Demon King's team? What is the Demon King's phone number? Coming." She said this, but Natasha hadn't really made up her mind, she was just a little wavering and incomplete, which had always been her heartache. At this time, the phone rang, but it was Coulson calling. "Natasha, come here quickly, I have an important task for you." The New York branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. A few years ago, the military secretly conducted human enhancement experiments. A scientist named Bruce Banner was exposed to a large amount of gamma rays due to an experimental accident. However, he did not die. He became a man over 2 meters tall and powerful. Infinite, invulnerable, and full of rage, the Hulk. Coulson said while playing the video, "This Hulk is very powerful. An entire military base was no match for him and was violently destroyed by him. Fortunately, he turned back into a rational Bruce Banner afterwards. According to our investigation, Dr. Banner will turn into the Hulk when he is angry. He has been hiding in Porto Verde for all these years. Just last month, the military found him." Quote. Coulson clicked on a picture, pointed to the ruins in the picture and said, "This turned out to be a beverage factory. The Hulk was fighting the army inside. As you can see, the military suffered heavy losses and the factory became ruins. This monster is really scary. I hope he doesn't come to New York." Natasha's face looked a little solemn. She thought of something and asked in shock, "Wait, Coulson, could it be?" "Yes, Dr. Banner is in New York. The exact location is unclear, but we have seen him coming into the city." Coulson smiled bitterly and said, "Natasha, I have other things to do. I leave the search for Dr. Banner to you. You must find him as quickly as possible. If he goes crazy in the city, the damage caused will never be lower than Magneto. The branch will fully cooperate with you." Quote. Natasha asked, "Other things? What else is more important than this big man? He can go crazy and destroy a district." Coulson did not answer Natasha's question, but looked a little excited. They found the man in the North Pole, and more importantly, he still had life characteristics. Finding someone is not a problem, The question is, what to do after you find someone? Natasha asked. Look at his big fist. One punch can beat me to a pulp, break all the bones, and burst my brain. You don't need to go into details. Once found, Professor Charles will take action. He should be able to make Dr. Banner not angry. Coulson said. Dr. Banner is easy to get along with when he is not angry. He has not changed during the years in Porto Wade. That's good. Natasha sighed and said, I hope there won't be any big trouble this time. New Yorkers have just relaxed for a few months. In a hospital in New York, General Ross looked at the ward full of wounded people, his expression extremely ugly. These wounded soldiers are all elites of the army, and Emil Blonsky among them is the super soldier king. Unfortunately, they are vulnerable to the Hulk. General Ross, I have a proposition. Norman sat in a wheelchair and said to General Ross, these soldiers are just right to participate in the human enhancement drug experiment. General Ross frowned. Your potion has not been successful yet. It has been successful, General. I will inject the medicine with these soldiers. Norman said slightly crazily, and General Ross was stunned. You, a billionaire, are being used as a guinea pig. Are you sick or just tired of living? At this time, General Ross noticed Norman's wheelchair and asked, Norman, is there something wrong with you? Norman said, that's not important. What's important is that you and I both need human enhancement potions. General Ross hesitated a little. At this time, Emil Blonsky, who had a broken leg next to him, shouted, I am willing to participate in the experiment. I want to defeat that big guy. I will never allow myself to fail. Emil Blonsky, a warrior who never admits defeat. Other soldiers also shouted, we are willing to. General Ross made up his mind after hearing this. He nodded and said, then we will do the experiment, but we can only choose 6 people. Norman, I hope your potion is really successful, otherwise, I will never let you go. Norman said confidently, don't worry, my potion is absolutely fine. Osborne Group, you are trustworthy. A few days later, at Calvo University, Andrew sat on a chair, admiring the beauties in the university and drinking ice Coke. Hey, are you here to accompany me, or are you here to see the beauty? Gwen pouted and asked very dissatisfiedly. This time, as her assistant, she accompanied Dr. Otto to give a lecture at Calvo University. Andrew happened to have nothing to do and came with her. Andrew pretended to ask, besides you, are there any other beauties here? Don't try to make me happy, I'm not that easy to fool. She said this, but the smile on Gwen's face betrayed her deeply. Andrew grabbed her hand and said, don't get me wrong, I'm not looking at the beauty, I'm looking at the poor man over there. Gwen looked along Andrew's finger and saw a man standing next to the big tree with a sad face. She blinked and said, he seems to be a professor at Calvo University. What happened? Look over there. Andrew changed his finger in another direction. There was a man and woman walking towards the library. From their intimate movements, it was not difficult to see their relationship. Andrew pointed at the fragile beauty and said, that's his girlfriend. Then, Andrew turned his finger to the thin man and continued, that's his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. I understand. My girlfriend ran away with her ex-boyfriend. It's so pitiful. Gwen suddenly realized, and Andrew smiled, it's quite pitiful. I think he should have called the police. Gwen complained. What's the use of calling the police? The police don't care about this kind of thing. Andrew said seriously. The police don't care, the army will. Let me tell you, a fully armed army will be here soon to arrest the ex-boyfriend and destroy other people's families. It is a heinous crime. Yes, maybe the army will bring tanks over. Gwen didn't believe it, and Andrew smiled without saying a word. He had already recognized the man and woman. The woman was Betty, the daughter of General Ross, and the man was Dr. Bruce Banner. It is worth mentioning that the image of Dr. Banner is the version of Avengers, but now he is thinner and obviously not doing well. I remember there seemed to be a biological genius in The Incredible Hulk. Well, when I traveled to Marvel, they didn't recruit superheroes, but recruited scientific and technological talents every day. Is my style of painting a bit biased? Andrew secretly complained. If he remembered correctly, that genius should be called Mr. Lan. At this time, a surprised voice suddenly came from not far away. Mr. Wong, are you actually here? Andrew and Gwen turned their heads and saw Natasha walking quickly towards this side, with excited faces on their faces. When Gwen saw Natasha, she immediately became wary. It was not that she lacked confidence, but that Natasha was too charming. What is a stunner? Natasha like this is called a stunner. Andrew said. She is S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Natasha. Because of my strong martial arts skills, S.H.I.E.L.D. sent her to seduce me. However, I did not fall for the trick and scolded her away. Someone from S.H.I.E.L.D. Gwen suddenly understood and looked at Natasha with a hint of disgust. Natasha was speechless. Are you really an angel? He lies more fluently than me. Do you believe that I told you that you have 2 boats? Natasha was thinking fiercely. At this moment, Andrew glanced at her with a half-smile. She immediately chose to follow her heart and confirmed with her eyes that this was a boss she couldn't afford to offend. Mr. Wong, you misunderstood. We at S.H.I.E.L.D. just want to make friends with you. Natasha said. By the way, Mr. Wong, why are you here? I'm coming with my girlfriend. Andrew said. If nothing happens, you can leave and don't disturb us. Okay, excuse me. Natasha smiled and walked towards Dr. Banner. This smile was not a disguise. She was very happy now. With Andrew Wong here, she was stable today. No matter how powerful the Hulk is, can he still defeat the Ghost Rider? At this moment, military vehicles rushed into the university, and immediately after, a large number of soldiers jumped out of the vehicles, shouting. Gwen was stunned. Are there really soldiers coming to arrest people? Is poaching someone else so serious a crime? Of course it's big. Tanks might actually appear soon. Andrew smiled and took Gwen to a safe place to watch the show, the Hulk vs. the Army show. Why are the military here? Natasha cursed and hurriedly ran towards Andrew. Those were thighs and they had to be hugged. Betty, run. Seeing the arrival of the army, Dr. Banner hurriedly pushed Betty away and ran towards the library. Just as Betty was about to catch up, a military vehicle drove up to her, and her father, General Ross, stepped out of the car. Betty was very shocked when she saw General Ross. She hurriedly asked, Dad, what are you doing? Of course to protect you, to protect this country. Catch her and don't let her run around. General Ross motioned to the soldiers to seize Betty, and he picked up the radio to direct the soldiers to capture Dr. Banner. At the same time, more and more soldiers are entering universities, and even infantry fighting vehicles and armed helicopters are appearing. Gwen became more and more shocked. Is there really a tank? Natasha couldn't help but curse. Is there anything wrong with General Ross's head? He actually sent the army into the university. If there is a conflict, many people will die. The military did not evacuate the students. Gwen looked a little ugly. Andrew took out his camera to take pictures and said, to achieve the goal, any means will be used. Such a person must be exposed. Natasha glanced at Andrew speechlessly. Are you pretending to be a reporter and pretending to be addicted? At this time, Bruce Banner was chased by several soldiers to the glass bridge. General Ross saw this and shouted, give him a taste of 2 tear gas canisters. The 2 soldiers immediately fired tear gas canisters at the glass bridge. With 2 pops, the tear gas canisters shattered the glass and fell on the bridge. Then, a large amount of white mist emerged from the tear gas canisters. Banner hurriedly took off his clothes and covered his mouth and nose. Bruce. Betty broke away from the soldiers and ran toward the glass bridge. 2 soldiers caught up with her and forced her back. Seeing his woman being treated roughly, Dr. Banner could no longer control the primordial power in his body. He let out a low roar, his eyes turned green, and his body swelled rapidly, even his clothes were torn. A moment later, a beast-like roar rang out from the white fog, and then, a big green man over 2 meters tall, full of anger, full of muscles, and wearing shorts shattered the glass and jumped from the bridge to the ground. Hulk is officially here. The quality of these pants is really good. Andrew sighed. Natasha and Gwen were speechless at the same time. Is this what you care about? Shot. General Ross immediately shouted, and a large number of bullets were fired at Hulk densely, but they could not penetrate his skin at all, and they all bounced to the ground. Hulk became more and more angry and rushed towards the soldiers with bullets in his head. Upon seeing this, General Ross immediately sent a tank to shoot to stop Hulk. Hulk approached the tank and exerted force on his shoulder, causing the tank to roll over and land on its side. Upon seeing this, The other tanks frantically fired large caliber bullets at Hulk, but they were unable to hurt Hulk at all. Instead, he overturned the tanks one after another. This is much scarier than what you see on the video. Natasha couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Gwen hesitated and said with a look of fear, "Andrew, this is too cruel. I want to go back to the classroom." Quite good at pretending. Andrew knew Gwen's purpose, nodded and said, "Okay, you go back to the classroom and rest. Don't worry, nothing serious will happen." Gwen nodded and returned to the classroom. A moment later, Spider-Gwen appeared and rescued the nearby students who were running away in panic. Natasha looked at Spider-Gwen and said, "Your girlfriend seems to have a little secret." Andrew sneered, "You think I don't know? Of course you know, you can even see through sin." Natasha hesitated and said, "Mr. Wong, thank you for reminding me. Otherwise, I would not have been able to completely settle the past, let alone rescue my sister." Andrew didn't say anything. "If you thank me now, when you find out that I am the devil in the future, you will definitely kneel down on the spot." Seeing that field vehicles and ordinary soldiers were ineffective against Hulk, General Ross called out his trump card, which were 6 human-enhanced soldiers. These 6 human-enhanced soldiers were led by Bronsky. They held grenade guns and fired while approaching the Hulk. Even the Hulk was pushed back by the grenades, and the surroundings were filled with flames and black smoke. "Big man, do you remember us? We are here to find you," Bronsky shouted with a ferocious look on his face. Hulk roared angrily, ran to the side, grabbed an infantry fighting vehicle and threw it at Bronsky and others. Blonsky and others hurriedly evaded, and Hulk took the opportunity to rush forward and punched Blonsky so hard that the air dented visibly. It is worth mentioning that although Hulk was in a sorry state, he had no injuries on his body. It was just a grenade, which could not hurt him. Blonsky avoided Hulk's fist at a speed beyond ordinary people. Then, he threw away the grenade gun and picked up the submachine gun hanging on his body to shoot at Hulk. Hulk roared angrily and tore off the 2 doors of the chariot. Then, he slammed the door hard at Bronsky, who nimbly jumped onto a big tree to avoid it. Hulk swings the car door and cuts off the tree. Blonsky rolls in the air and shoots at the back of Hulk's head. Hulk turns around and hits Blonsky, and Blonsky rolls away. Hulk was about to pursue, and others joined in the attack. Bullets and grenades hit Hulk one after another. Hulk had to use the car door as a shield to resist the attack. Blonsky took the opportunity to get up and continued the attack with excitement. In this way, the 6 enhanced soldiers cooperated and supported each other, and even Hulk could not defeat them in a short time. They really can. General Ross was elated. The human enhancement potion was successful, and even the Hulk was restrained. Andrew shook his head. It was just a containment. Hulk's strength was not just that. The military actually created an enhanced person. Natasha was very surprised and hurriedly reported the news to headquarters. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. did not have the technology to enhance the human body. "Blonsky, the cannon is deployed," General Ross shouted to Blonsky, and Bronsky made a gesture and led everyone to turn around and run away. Hulk immediately chased after him with a bang. The cannon is a sonic weapon produced by the Stark Group. Unfortunately, it could not stop the Hulk and was quickly destroyed by the Hulk. Upon seeing this, Blonsky came back with the enhanced man. The 2 sides continued to fight fiercely. The soldiers were side support. Hateful. The cannon failed, and General Ross couldn't help but curse. He was about to call for an armed helicopter to attack. At this moment, a strange man in green armor flew towards this side on a Delta Wing aircraft that was constantly emitting black gas. The weirdo shouted to General Ross, "General Ross, I'm here to help you." General Ross was stunned for a moment, and then asked in astonishment, "Norman?" "It's me." The old Green Goblin Norman laughed strangely, and controlled the Green Goblin skateboard to launch micro-missiles at Hulk. With a bang, Hulk was pushed back, and Bronsky and others took the opportunity to attack. "Old Green Goblin, are you making a fool of yourself?" Andrew couldn't help complaining. Although Norman's Green Goblin armor has been modified and not as ferocious as in the movie, there is no doubt that he is still the same old Green Goblin. Why did another weirdo appear? Natasha was speechless. Are drag shows popular in New York now? No, just a follower. Andrew pointed to the guy holding the camera below and said, "Someone wants to learn Iron Man. Follow the trend." Natasha was stunned. She glanced at the camera guy and said thoughtfully, "You mean, he wants to be another Iron Man?" Yes, the reason why Stark Group was able to successfully transform was because Iron Man stabilized the stock price. Andrew nodded and said, "This green tycoon wants to copy Iron Man's path and raise the stock price. Unfortunately, he cannot be as popular as Iron Man." Natasha nodded. "Following the trend is definitely not as popular as the first one." "That's not the reason." Andrew shook his head and said, "The real reason is that he is too old and too ugly." Natasha was stunned. "Is this reason too realistic?" Andrew said, "Superheroes are actually super idols. If the one in the sky is smart enough, he should push his son out instead of doing it himself." Norman naturally didn't know what Andrew said about him. He was very excited now. On the one hand, the human enhancement drug cured his genetic disease and made him very strong. On the other hand, he thought of a way to save the group's stock price. Genius approach. "When I finish taking care of this big monster, I will become a superhero more famous than Iron Man. Coupled with the success of the human enhancement potion, the group's stock price will definitely soar. Hey, those fools on the board of directors are waiting to see what my face looks like." Quote. Thinking of those fools on the board of directors who were more hateful than vampires, Norman gritted his teeth, laughed strangely, and threw a row of pumpkin bombs at Hulk. Pumpkin bombs exploded one after another, making Hulk dizzy. He roared angrily and slammed the car door against Norman in the sky. Norman controlled the aircraft to easily avoid it and let out a proud smile. With this laugh and this green taste, who would be a fan of him? Andrew complained, and Natasha believed that this green guy didn't look like a decent guy. General Ross ignored Norman's calculations and asked loudly, "Norman, is there any way to hurt Banner?" "Don't worry, there is." Norman took out a green energy gun and aimed it at Hulk. The next second, a green light hit Hulk's shoulder. Hulk's strong muscles quickly dissolved, and even the bones underneath could be seen. This is the dissolving ray gun of the Osborn Group. It has no other disadvantages except that it is super expensive. General Ross and others were overjoyed to see this. After fighting for so long, Hulk was finally injured. The injury made Hulk become furious. He roared and jumped more than 10 meters high with his feet, causing a large pit to sink into the ground. Then, Hulk slapped Norman on the aircraft hard. Norman laughed strangely and controlled the aircraft to go behind Hulk. Then, he continued to shoot, and a gap was dissolved in Hulk's back again. Fortunately, Hulk has super self-healing ability, and his wounds heal quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Upon seeing this, Norman accelerated his attack and shouted to Bronski and the others, "Help me wrap him up." Bronski was annoyed when he heard this. "Why should I cooperate with you? Bronski, I'm the strongest one." He shouted, took out the small pistol from his waist and walked quickly towards the fallen Hulk. "Blonsky, stop," General Ross shouted hurriedly when he saw this. Unfortunately, Blonsky not only did not stop, but also challenged Hulk. "Come on, monster, let's see who is more powerful among us." Hulk was full of anger. When he saw Blonsky coming, he kicked him out and hit the wall until he was unconscious. Judging from the degree of folding of his body, his spine was completely broken. Seeing that Captain Bronski was severely injured, the remaining 5 enhanced soldiers were furious and attacked Hulk desperately. After a moment, 5 twisted and deformed bodies appeared on the ground. The most important thing for a team is to be neat and tidy. Norman was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He was a bunch of pig teammates, and General Ross also kept scolding him. He shouted loudly, "Ordinary soldiers retreat, get on the helicopter." Natasha asked in confusion. They are all veterans who have experienced hundreds of battles. Why did they suddenly lose their minds? Most human enhancement projects are restoring Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum. Andrew said. The super soldier serum has a special characteristic, you should know it, right? Natasha, who often watches Captain America movies, laughed and said, "Of course I know that good people get better and evil people get worse. Red Skull becomes the great villain, and Captain America becomes the great saint." Yes, although I don't know what kind of strengthening medicine they were injected with, it is obvious that this medicine failed and their negative emotions were amplified. Andrew said, "American soldiers are generally very cruel. If this kind of drug becomes popular in the army, it will be a catastrophe. I knew these guys weren't reliable. Natasha cursed. She hesitated and did not speak to Andrew. She knew very well that she could not control whether the other party would take action. Da. The large caliber machine gun on the armed helicopter fired at Hulk fiercely, and Hulk had to raise his arm to resist. Norman took the opportunity to fire the dissolving ray again, and a large wound appeared on Hulk's arm. This made Hulk even more angry. He ran behind a small pile of rocks with bullets in his head. Then, he picked up rocks and kept throwing them at Norman. The rocks thrown by Hulk were fast and urgent, and some even exceeded the speed of sound and produced sonic booms. Norman hurriedly controlled the aircraft to avoid them. It was Norman's first time using an aircraft, so he was inevitably unfamiliar. Soon, the aircraft was hit by a stone, and black smoke erupted from the bottom with a bang. Norman hurriedly controlled it to stabilize it. The aircraft finally stabilized, and General Ross's horrified cry came from below, "Be careful." Before Norman could react, a huge green figure appeared in front of him, and then Hulk slapped Norman hard. Norman flew out like a kite with a broken string, and crashed into the helicopter with a bang. The helicopter spun violently in the air due to the impact. A moment later, the helicopter hit the ground and exploded with a bang, setting off a large amount of flames and black smoke. It is worth mentioning that Norman did not die. He jumped out before the impact. The armor on his body, like the steel suit, has a strong anti-shock and shock-absorbing effect. Poor Norman, the show was screwed up. While taking pictures, Andrew complained, "Of course, this is normal. Iron Man only fights Obadiah in the first fight. You directly challenge the Hulk in the first fight. Who will lose if you don't lose?" Hulk landed on the ground with a bang and roared at the surroundings. He was so happy and domineering that he couldn't describe it. General Ross's heart sank. How could he fight like this? Andrew touched his chin. "Do you want Hulk to be reborn in hell as a vanguard general?" "Quite mighty." Andrew's eyes flashed slightly. "If you want to tame the beast, you must beat him first." At this time, Natasha received a call from Professor Charles. "Natasha, I have located the Hulk, but he is very angry now, and I am not sure how to restore him to calm." Professor Charles is not at Calvo Academy, he is at the mutant school using a brainwave enhancer to target the Hulk. Natasha said, "Professor, give it a try. We are in the university now. If this big guy goes crazy, many people will die." "Good." Professor Charles nodded and used the brainwave intensifier to enter Dr. Banner's mind. Soon, he found Dr. Banner deep in his consciousness and said, "Dr. Banner, I am Professor Charles. Let's work together to remove your angry personality. Press it down." Professor Charles, Dr. Banner was stunned for a moment, then said, "That's not my angry personality, that's a beast. I, Bruce Banner, am a scientist with 7 doctorates. He is your angry personality. He shares your emotional system. Dr. Banner, you should accept him." Professor Charles said, "Let's not talk about this for now. Let's take your body back together." "Okay, but he's really not me," Dr. Banner said stubbornly, and then, with the help of the professor's spiritual power, he gradually suppressed Hulk's consciousness back. "I won't go back. Hulk hasn't had enough fun yet, and more importantly, the enemy hasn't been completely eliminated yet. He doesn't want to go back and desperately fights Dr. Banner." The battle of consciousness made Hulk stupidly stop in place. General Ross saw this and thought that the opportunity had come. He hurriedly gave in and aimed the chariot at Hulk. At the same time, the old Green Goblin also got up from the ground and pointed the energy gun at Hulk with a ferocious expression. "Ram back." "No," Betty shouted loudly when she saw this, but it was useless. Under the order of General Ross, a cannonball and a green light hit Hulk at the same time. Hulk was blown away on the spot. What was worse was that a piece of his back was dissolved. Big hole. Seeing that Hulk was injured, Betty struggled desperately. The soldier saw this and roughly pushed her to the ground. He was injured and his girlfriend was pushed down again. Hulk was completely angry. Dr. Banner's consciousness was forced back to the depths by him. At the same time, his wounds recovered at an alarming speed. Then, Hulk got up and kicked the body next to him hard towards Norman. Norman was instantly knocked away and rolled on the ground. After dealing with Norman, Hulk roared and jumped in front of the soldiers. Then, with a flick of his hand, several soldiers who were holding Betty were swept away. General Ross was frightened and fled into the command vehicle. The command vehicle was about to escape, but was picked up by the angry Hulk and held above his head. Seeing that the command vehicle was about to be thrown out, Betty hurriedly shouted, "Bruce, no." Hulk threw the command vehicle to the ground with some annoyance. Then, he turned around and rushed towards the soldiers. The soldiers were no match for him at all and were swept away by him one after another. Hulk is very powerful, and the soldiers swept away by him were either killed or seriously injured. The situation was completely out of control. Dr. Charles's voice sounded in Natasha's mind, "I'm sorry, I failed." Hulk was completely angered. Natasha gritted her teeth. "I don't blame you, it's the military that was stupid." The Hulk was raging, and one person couldn't sit still, and that was the kind-hearted Spider-Gwen. She couldn't help but use spider silk to rescue the two soldiers. When the Hulk saw this, he immediately rushed towards her with a bang. Gwen immediately fired the spider web at Hulk, and Hulk was caught in the web. Then, the current on it started, and Hulk roared and tore the spider web apart with force. Then, Hulk rushed in front of Gwen and punched her hard. Gwen used spider silk to fly to the tree. Hulk punched the big tree, which was broken on the spot and fell down. Gwen hurriedly jumped to another big tree. Hulk broke down all the trees in the forest like a demolition worker, and Gwen gradually lost her hiding space. In fact, if Gwen wanted to escape, it would not be difficult. The problem was that Gwen didn't want to involve other people, and she couldn't give up those soldiers. At this time, Hulk grabbed a big tree and used it as a stick to sweep at Gwen. Although Gwen tried her best to avoid it, she was still scraped by the branches and fell from the air. Her heart sank. This was terrible. At this moment, Gwen fell into a warm and strong embrace. She looked up and found that Andrew was hugging her, and she suddenly felt happy. Andrew landed on the ground and gently put Gwen down. Then, he touched Gwen's head and said, "Leave first and leave this place to me." "Well, be careful." Gwen nodded and stepped aside obediently. Her heart was full of sweetness. Her boyfriend was reliable and gentle. Hey, wait a minute. She was not Gwen now, but Spider-Woman. Gwen was suddenly a little dissatisfied. "Why are you so gentle to other women? And you still touch your head." Seeing another person coming out, Hulk became even more angry. He was about to attack when he suddenly saw a huge figure emerging from behind Andrew, only Hulk could see it. This figure looked down at Hulk like a god, and the entire void almost froze. Even Hulk couldn't help but feel terrified in his heart. Hulk, invincible. Fear did not make Hulk retreat, but made him even more angry. He roared, jumped up hard, and hit Andrew hard from high altitude. Andrew shook his head, and when Hulk jumped to the highest point, he suddenly appeared in front of Hulk, and then, he kicked Hulk hard on the chin with a high kick in the air. Accompanied by the crisp sound of bone cracking, Hulk turned 720 degrees in the air and fell to the ground with a bang, forming a herringbone pit. Before Hulk could recover from the violent impact, Andrew grabbed his calf and slammed him to the left. Boom, dust flew up and the whole earth shook. This was not over yet. Andrew then smashed Hulk to the right, and then to the left. Boom boom, the ground kept sinking downwards, and the surrounding buildings almost collapsed. Everyone was stunned. That was Hulk. He was being beaten around like a toy. "Who is this?" Gwen secretly complained. Which dimension of Kung Fu Master is Andrew actually so powerful? Natasha looked admiring. Ghost Rider is really too strong. Professor Charles was quite lucky. I'm so lucky that Eric wasn't beaten to death by him. General Ross and a group of soldiers. Who is the monster? Norman looked confused. How can Andrew Wong be so strong? Fortunately, I didn't choose to be his enemy. After the shock, Norman felt deep jealousy in his heart. Andrew Wong was younger, stronger, richer, and more handsome than himself, so why should all the good things belong to him? Boom, Andrew let go and threw Hulk into the big pit he made. Hulk looked at the sky, his mind went blank. Who am I? Where am I? What am I going to do? No tears in the corners of my eyes, bad review. Andrew looked disappointed. Should he be beaten again? At this time, Betty reacted. She broke away from the soldiers, shackles and ran to Hulk, shouting with tears, "Bruce." Hulk came to his senses, got up, glanced at Andrew in horror, hugged Betty and ran away. Upon seeing this, General Ross quickly sent people to chase him, but the soldiers looked at each other and all chose to stay put. "Please, we can't defeat that monster at all, okay? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.